Return to the past with a warehouse. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 426. The dust settles. The marriages of the princes and relatives were arranged, and then it was time to choose a husband for the princess. At the same time, there were also marriages for other women from the royal family, or those who came to the harem for respectability. The queen also agreed to them, and hurried to grant marriages. The third princess was carefully selected by concubine Chen, and was granted marriage to Qin Chuan, the eldest grandson of Qin Zuzhi, a great scholar in the capital. Zheng, Wu, Yang, and Qin have been the leaders of the Confucian scholars for generations. They have been standing firm in the previous dynasty and even the dynasty before the previous dynasty. Now they are almost the four strongest academic cliques in Dayang. They have been intermarried for generations and have long been inseparable. For example, Qin Chuan's elder sister married into the Zheng family and became the sister-in-law of Miss Zhengshu, and Zhengshu has become the consort of the eldest prince. Miss Zhengshu's brother married Qin Chuan's elder sister Qindun. Miss Zhengshu's aunt is the mistress of the Jiangnan Lin family and will soon become the mother-in-law of the fourth prince. Zhengshu's younger sister Zheng Xian has been engaged to Yang Mengxin's grandson, Xiao Yangjinshi. Among the four great families, Zheng and Wu are mostly in official careers. There are many people in the Zheng family who are in official careers, most of whom are clean officials. There are fewer people in the Wu family, but Wu Yu is in the cabinet, and according to the current trend, after he retires, it will be Yang Fuan, a student and son-in-law of the Wu family, who will take over. Yang and Qin are mainly engaged in academic research and have a very high reputation in the Confucian community. The Yang family has a taifu, and Yang Mengxin is the master of the princess and the prince. The Yang family is relatively noble. The Qin family has a title, which is more low-key, more pragmatic, and has a stronger family background. Qin Zuzhi, the old patriarch of the Qin family, has more than 3,000 disciples, and his students and former officials are all over the world, with a very high invisible prestige. His wife and daughter-in-law were very good at business and quietly accumulated a fortune. Qin Chuan himself was handsome and talented, and concubine Chen was very satisfied with this son-in-law. He was rich, powerful, and had power. His family was in the capital, so his daughter didn't have to marry far away. She could take care of things naturally. He was much more reliable than Li Ju, an old local rich man who was far away, in Jinling with only money. Other marriages that were sought were also arranged. The last one was the marriage of Princess Yu, who was only in the Ministry of Internal Affairs and the Ancestral Temple. The Princess Yu was to marry Li Ju, the Marquis of Fengrang. According to convention, Li Ju was granted the title of Marquis of Fengjin, which meant that Li Ju enjoyed double titles and double ranks from the day the princess married. Giving the title of a son-in-law was actually to give a person without a title an identity when marrying a princess. And people with titles did not necessarily have to be given titles when marrying a princess. Looking back, there were very few people with double titles. Extra titles such as Marquis of Maon were mainly used for people without rank. But this time, the emperor insisted on giving Li Ju the title of first-class marquis. So just looking at the salary and rank, Li Ju has reached the level of super-grade duke. According to this level, plus Chen Guiyang's title level salary, the specifications and grades of the wedding supplies that should be purchased have been raised to the highest level. Counting the part that the emperor and the empress will subsidize privately, this is not a princess entering the house. This is a mountain of gold entering the house. Because Chen Guiyang remarried after divorce, the emperor and empress deliberately handled the news in a low-key manner, at least not as loud as the previous Yang family. Chen Guiyang herself is not a publicity-seeking person, and it is just what she wants to get less attention. But she was afraid that Li Ju would want to make a big deal, so she could only implicitly ask Li Ju's opinion. Li Ju himself didn't care. His brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, and uncles who were married in the entirely family basically got married without a marriage certificate. It was fine. As for him, he listened to his wife. Therefore, his reply to Chen Guiyang was to ask Chen Guiyang to make the decision. The queen was very satisfied with this reply. The queen arranged for Chen Guiyang to live in Jinling with Li Ju for a few years after the marriage. Anyway, the transportation is still well developed now, and it is enough to come back every 2 or 3 years. When this matter has completely faded, Li Ju can also obtain the real title of duke according to his technical achievements. By then, it will not be too late to return to Chang'an. No matter how low-key Chen Guiyang's marriage is, it will inevitably become a topic of conversation in the upper class of the capital for a long time. The princess married again after the divorce, and the one she married was the new noble Fengrang Marquis Li Ju. The predecessor who was dumped by the princess was the son of Yang Teifu. He was one of the face of the Yang family. This move is the royal family trampling on the face of the Yang family and other scholars. Considering that the person the princess married was Li Ju, who was also challenging the dignity of the scholars, does it mean that the royal family supports Li Ju and is ready to start a group with scholars and gentry? All kinds of gossip and wild guesses spread in secret, making Teifu Yang and his wife and the former prince consort Yang so angry that they were about to fall ill. Even Yang Qinsh had to keep a low profile during this period, trying not to appear in front of her parents and brother. Wu Yu and others felt a little sorry for their own kind, and felt that the emperor's handling of this matter was disheartening. But the emperor had never publicly announced this matter, and the former prince consort Yang himself had made a big mistake, and the handle was still in the hands of the queen, so it was difficult for them to confront him in the court. As for catching Li Ju's handle, they wanted to, but would it be useful if they caught it? Li Ju's biggest mistake was that he was disrespectful to heaven, earth, and teacher. Li Ju himself admitted it, but they had no way to deal with Li Ju. They couldn't beat him, and there was no response to scolding him. It seemed that thousands of people pointed at him, and he died without illness was not true at all. They wanted to demote him, but he was not in the court, and he was clean in private, so he had no crime at all. Want to block his promotion? He should be promoted. He wanted to bring his own disciples to embarrass Li Ju in the details, such as not sending food to his family. Well, there are many people who want to get closer to Li Ju in private. Today, they just controlled the people in the open through coercion and inducement. In private, there are already countless people who secretly came to help. The so-called ban is just a superficial effort. In the end, Wu Yu could only comfort Liu Yang and said, on that day, we will never go to the Li family, let alone the princess's mansion, and we will never give them face. We must let everyone in the world know what it means to lose support when you lose the way. Thinking of the fact that there were no guests on their wedding day and they were expelled by the upper class because of the cold house, it seemed that they could get back some face. In this way, they comforted each other and waited to see Li Ju's joke, and Yang Qinsh, who was eavesdropping on the side, thought that this was too ridiculous and there was no need to eavesdrop. They wanted to go, but Li Ju and Chen Guiyang didn't want to invite guests at all, right? Considering that Li Ju had been away from Jinling for quite a while, and both of them were not young anymore, the emperor chose to hold Chen Yang's wedding before his own birthday, and held it in a low-key manner. Except for the most trusted relatives and friends on both sides, no other guests were invited. By choosing this time point, he could first buy more property for the young couple during the birthday, and then let the young couple have some fun during the birthday, just as if their wedding was also lively. After the wedding, the young couple came together to attend the birthday ceremony, so as to see whether Chen Yang was happy after the marriage. The birthday was just around the corner, so the Ministry of Internal Affairs was immediately busy, and everyone mentioned marriage and marriage like a chicken with its neck pinched, and just wanted to stick it out. Fortunately, everything in Princess Chen Guiyang's mansion was ready. Although the Fengjin Marquis's mansion was built in another place, the time could be delayed until 3 years later, because Princess Chen Guiyang's marriage was held in Fengjin Marquis's mansion, also known as Jinling Marquis's mansion, and it was just a small ceremony in the capital. The princess's mansion and Fengjin Marquis's mansion were not a problem. There was no need to build a large-scale building for the time being, and there were not so many ceremonies, so this matter was much simpler. It was just that the money and property rewarded by the emperor and empress and the gifts sent by Li Ju were too much, and it was a little troublesome to properly decorate and register them for storage. Chapter 427, Wedding Preparation 1. Oh, what a wonderful thing. An enamel matte box with a western beauty. Look at this beauty, so lifelike, so charming, like a living person. Haven't you seen it elsewhere? How many carts are there? The 8th or ninth? Did Marquis Fengrang send all his family property? Nonsense. He didn't know he was getting married when he went to Beijing, so how could he send all his family property in advance? Look at this, a crystal curtain with the word longevity worth 18,000 yuan. Wow, crystals as big as a thumb, each one is round. Not only that, he sent 16 sets of crystal curtains, and also colored glaze flower curtains. Only if their Li family has a glass factory, they can burn so many, and so good ones, right? According to the rules, the prince consort of this dynasty does not need to prepare a betrothal gift. Because marrying a princess is almost equivalent to ruining one's career, and there are a series of restrictions such as not being able to have affairs with women, the treatment of the prince consort has always been very generous. However, Li Ju still prepared a gift as generous as possible for the princess, which greatly pleased His Majesty the Emperor, who doubled the amount of Li Ju's gift and sent it to the Li family. After the gifts were registered, those that were easy to carry were taken to Jinling, and those that were difficult to carry were temporarily placed in the princess's mansion. When the Fengjin Marquis mansion was built, they would be transferred to the Fengjin Marquis mansion. The Fengjin Marquis mansion was located next to the princess's mansion. It was slightly smaller than the princess's mansion in Qingyang, and had a proper garden house. It was originally intended to be used as a mansion for the young Prince Consort Yang after his marriage. The young Prince Consort Yang was a man who passed the imperial examination, and he saw that he had no hope for a career in the government. His Majesty the Emperor was worried that he would dislike the princess because of this, so he tried his best to make him happy in both big and small matters. For example, the title of Prince Consort Yang was Marquis Diang instead of Marquis Xn requested by Taifu Yang, and the Marquis's mansion was never built completely, so Prince Consort Yang stayed in the Yang family after marrying Qingyang, and so on, and so on, and His Majesty did not pursue it too much. Everyone knows that Prince Consort Yang is actually uncomfortable looking at the princess's mansion, which is larger and more magnificent than his own, and he also knows that he is inferior to the princess in every way, even his knowledge is worse than the princess, so he is particularly awkward. He can't let go of the benefits of marrying the princess, but he also wants to show off in front of the princess. In fact, everyone is waiting to see what Li Ju is going to do. Now seeing all kinds of rare and precious things being sent to the princess's mansion, everyone has realized that no matter what Li Ju thinks in his heart, at least he is really good to the princess on the surface. The wedding of Li Ju and Qingyang was mainly held in the princess's mansion. In order to make Li Ju feel more comfortable, Qingyang deliberately asked everyone in the princess's mansion to temporarily obey the arrangements of Yu Yaoniang, that is, Li Qiu. Yu Yaoniang behaved properly when she entered the palace that day. She was not as dazzling as Sanjiu, but she could not find fault with it either. The queen felt that such a down-to-earth and non-devilish girl was more suitable to be an official of the prince consort, so she rewarded her generously. Qingyang took the opportunity to temporarily hand over the affairs of the princess's mansion to Yu Yaoniang, and gave Yu Yaoniang the privilege of entering the palace to meet the emperor at any time. Yu Yaoniang did things smoothly before and after. Later, when the wedding was halfway through preparations and the house was in place, Yu Yaoniang came to ask the princess to come and check. The princess's ceremonial procession stopped, and Yu Yaoniang was waiting at the door early and took the initiative to reach out to help Qingyang get out of the car. Qingyang took Yu Yaoniang's hand and took a look. He saw that Yu Yaoniang had changed into a woman's dress, with a smooth woman's bun, a big red headband with pearls, a lotus-colored silk shirt, a moon-white skirt, a green lotus-colored gauze vest, and a crimson belt around her waist. She looked neat and clean. Qingyang couldn't help but wonder, "You got married suddenly?" Yu Yaoniang touched her bun and said, "I combed my hair myself. The master cannot be without confidants around him. He can't change people every now and then. Or if he changes to a man, and the man gets married, what's wrong with him telling his wife when he goes back? There is no reason for a husband to keep secrets from his wife. Wouldn't the master be like a sieve? I thought that I would never get married in my life, and there are many women who comb their hair themselves in Kingshan." Chengyang knew that she combed her hair herself to make it easier for the Marquis mansion to do things. However, she was different from Sanjiu and Chengyang. Yaoniang had never experienced the love between men and women at her age, and Chengyang felt sorry for her inexplicably. Sister, I know that Marquis Fengrang treats you like his own sister, so you are my sister. In the future, whether you want to get married or not, whether you want to marry anyone or not, I will agree to it. There is no need to be so decisive. If there is really no suitable person to be your master's subordinate, then I will be your master's subordinate. There is no need to worry about so much. You are just like your master, young but with hundreds of years of worries in your stomach. Princess, you have to close the door and talk quietly. Anyway, I just need to listen. Yaoniang held Chengyang's arm and joked with a smile. Anyway, I will be shameless today and call the princess sister-in-law. I understand what sister-in-law means. If I really meet the right person in the future, I will not let myself down, nor will I let my brother and sister-in-law down. Chengyang also smiled with a red face. The group entered the second gate inside and looked around. In fact, there was nothing to check. The big heads would be sent to Jingling. The princess's mansion had not changed much except for the addition of a whole section for the prince consort's residence. Chengyang insisted on giving half of the main house to Li Ju. The couple nominally lived in one half each, just like other couples in Beijing, who had different courtyards. They were settled separately, but they were different. They still lived together. In addition, a cement runway with compacted soil was added to the mansion. The stables were expanded, and houses for cats, dogs, and white geese were built to facilitate Li Ju's daily martial arts practice, horse racing, and playing with cats and dogs. Chengyang also added a house for himself to keep pets, which housed foxes, peacocks, and cicadea, which could be held and played with, or placed in the garden for appreciation. 2/3 of the garden in the backyard was divided into farmland, and half of the small pond was divided into aquaculture. Now the farmland has been divided into ridges and acres, and a water network has been built in the pond. Chengyang felt that Li Ju would never give up his experimental field, so he made this special arrangement, turning a nice northern garden into a slightly rustic country farm. But Chengyang liked it. It was the time of wheat harvest in the north, and some dried wheat ears were placed in the decorative flowers of the princess's mansion, which showed that she and Li Ju were interested in this. Most of the ideas were proposed by the princess, but the final execution was done by Yaoniang. From the way she looked at it, Chengyang felt that there was nothing wrong, but she didn't know what Li Ju thought. If she asked Li Ju about related matters at this time, she would be shy, and it would be impossible for her to be as natural and frank as before. But Chengyang still hoped that this place would also please Li Ju, so she still blushed and asked Yaoniang, I think everything is good, but I don't know what your brother thinks. He will come here often in the future, right? What if something is inappropriate? Wouldn't he be unhappy? Yaoniang laughed and pointed to the small house beside the farmland and the pond. What about his preferences? Sister-in-law, ask him yourself. How can I, as a sister-in-law, know what my brother thinks? Chengyang was shocked and looked into the house. There was a vague figure inside, fishing on the side of the pond with his back to them. After carefully distinguishing the figure, who else could it be but Li Ju? Yaoniang explained, my brother is shy and refuses to come out to see people, so he hides there secretly. Sister-in-law, go and ask directly if you have anything to say. I will take the others here to the warehouse to check if those jade, agate and gold bowls are all put away. You guys chat slowly, we are leaving. Chapter 428, Fraud. Chengyang stood there for a while, and when he saw that Li Ju had put away his fishing rod, he slowly walked to the bench outside the small thatched house between the pond and the fields and sat down, but his back was facing Li Ju. This small house was originally built for people who were busy in the fields during the busy farming season, so that they could have a place to rest without having to go back to their rooms. Although it was a small thatched house, it was actually made of bricks and tiles. However, it looked like a yellow earth wall and thatched house on the outside, which retained some wildness. The inside was spacious, bright and clean. The interesting thing was that there were 2 ginkgo trees, one male and one female, next to the house. They were who knows how many years old. The trunks were as thick as a man's arms, and the green leaves on them covered the sky and the sun, casting a cool breeze on the ground. Li Ju sat there with his back to the direction they came from, watching the small fish and shrimps fighting in the pond. He was wondering why Yaoniang insisted on him coming here today, but now he understood, which was a pleasant surprise. He didn't want to come here today because this is the princess's mansion. Li Ju always felt that he was still an outsider at this time. How could an outsider enter the house without saying hello when the owner was not at home? But in the morning, Yaoniang dragged Gizzy to help him get dressed and dressed. Zeking, who came to visit, said that the princess had ordered that the princess's mansion must be a place for marriage, and he had to like it. Go and see it as soon as possible. If there is anything wrong, change it quickly. It will be too late to mention it on the day, which is purely a hassle. Li Ju thought about it and realized that this was the truth, so he followed Yaoniang and the eunuchs to take a look. Yaoniang left suddenly just now, and Li Ju felt strange. He thought that there was something urgent. Unexpectedly, she appeared again, and had already picked up Princess Chengayang here. Li Ju understood that Yaoniang had dragged him out today just for this. Thank you for your concern, Princess. These 2 acres of land and this pond are really unexpected. Chengayang said softly, I can't bring you any benefits by marrying you. Instead, you have been labeled as a foreign relative for nothing. Those people find fault with you every day and can't find any evidence against you. Now that you are a foreign relative, it will be 10 times worse. Whatever you want to do in the future, it won't be as simple as before. It's me who has implicated you. I can only help you with limited things outside. I can only try my best to make you feel like you are living in your own happy hometown, no matter where you live. Besides, working in the fields is very interesting, and I like it very much. Especially at harvest time, the golden wheat and the fragrance of grain everywhere make people feel at ease for no reason. So, it's not all to please you. I also have my own interests here. Princess, you are too modest. I used to say that a place to stay where I can lie down and sit when I'm alive and where my ashes can be buried after I die is enough. But now, I have got far more than I expected. Even though I'm alone, with a strange personality, and not tolerated by the world, the person I love is willing to start a family with me and give me a place that can be called home. I'm already satisfied. Even if you may only have an empty title and can't really control the government for the rest of your life. Even if you will be laughed at and ridiculed for marrying a remarried daughter in order to curry favor with the royal family. Even if I may not be able to have children and we may not have children, do you still think so, sir? Life is like a journey. You and I are just passers-by. I only care about the person next to me who will grow old with me and spend 100 years together. I can't care about other things. My heart can be big to accommodate the problem of food for all the people in the world, but my heart is small and it is already full with the confidant. Power, wealth. The opinions of outsiders, the descendants, are nothing but smoke and clouds. I marry you, just because it is you, not for any other reason. As the saying goes, love does not change, even when the stars change. Princess Chengayang smiled, her expression seemed to be happy and tormented. Li Ju put another ball of bait on the hook, but handed the fishing rod to Chengayang, and invited her to fish together. After an afternoon of fishing, Chengayang caught a carp and a melon. Li Ju had nothing, and he spent all his time chatting with Chengayang. But the two did not talk about any other topics, except the arrangements for the princess's mansion and the Jinling Fengrang Marquis mansion. Because neither of them cared about food, clothing, housing and transportation, where to live, and how to live, could change with each other, which was the safest and least likely topic to cause conflict. Before the engagement, they could get along honestly. After the engagement, she was worried about gains and losses, afraid that he would see her shortcomings, and rarely showed her childish behavior. Unfortunately, the time was not long. An hour passed at the speed of light. Chengayang had to return to the palace, and Li Ju had to go back to his home to deal with affairs. Li Ju was very busy in the capital, and the scholars who gathered in front of the gate gradually dispersed, but more people wrote letters to discuss with him, and he was also preparing to test run the steam-powered locomotive on the track between the capital gate and the ferry built by the second prince, and he was still nervously adjusting it. Yu Yaoniang understood the principle of the steam engine thoroughly, and with the help of some rubber brought by Li Ju, he modified several steam engines of different sizes and functions. The most anticipated one was the manned locomotive that His Majesty the Emperor specifically asked to come and watch its operation. Yu Yaoniang felt that he should not make any mistakes, but if there was a problem, it would be extremely embarrassing, so he did not dare to be careless at all. If there was anything he could not understand, or that was different, he would chase Li Ju and ask clearly. Li Ju's stolen half day of leisure was really just stolen, and he would go back at the appointed time. Li Ju and Yu Yaoniang sent Cheng Guiyang to the car, returned to lock the door of the princess's mansion, and went back to the Li family. Li Ju did not expect Yu Yaoniang to let him and Cheng Guiyang meet before the marriage, so he thanked her seriously. Yu Yaoniang said nonchalantly, "It's a small matter, but it was just a coincidence when arranging the time. It's not worth thanking me, brother. Besides, I did it for the princess's good. I heard that the princess still has doubts and has become thin. I colluded with the palace to arrange a chance for you. You don't have to thank me. Give me more red envelopes." Li Ju couldn't help but rub Yu Yaoniang's head. The brother and sister and the mute each got on their horses and walked slowly all the way. The two sides were not far apart, and with a good and stable horse like Aze, they only had to walk slowly and leisurely, and soon reached the last turn of the Li family. Just after turning around, a man bumped into him, and he fell down with a cry of surprise and was motionless. Aze neighed and took 2 steps back. Li Jiu's mother hurriedly got off the horse and went forward to check. Yu Yaoniang couldn't help but become suspicious. Why didn't he come earlier or later? But just when Li Jiu turned the corner, this alley was an alley. Since the neighboring family sealed the door on this side, there was only the Li family in the alley. This person appeared here, so he must be looking for the Li family, but Yu Yaoniang had never seen such a person before. The girl who bumped into Aze was a young girl, no more than 20 years old, with a pretty face and a graceful figure. She was dressed in pine-colored pants, an apricot white skirt, a peach red shirt, and a green jacket. There was a small silver phoenix on her head with a small ruby, which was a popular style in Beijing. She was probably a local in Chang'an. Yu Yaoniang and Li Ju didn't recognize this girl. Li Ju knew from experience that the girl's fall had little to do with Aze. Aze was walking very slowly just now, and the girl's speed was not fast. It was just a collision, and it shouldn't cause any big problems. The mute ran back and forth to take a look, and came back to shake his head at Li Ju. He didn't see anything, and no one else passed by. The girl was still fainted, and they couldn't just leave her fainted on the side of the road. Li Ju had no choice but to ask the mute and Yu Yaoniang to stay here. He went back and called Gizzy and the others to help the girl who fell on the side of the road into the house. Chapter 429, Unexpected Guests. Since the person he saved was a woman, Li Ju called housekeeper Wu to ask him to help calculate the cost of hiring a doctor and getting medicine, and to prepare to get off the carriage and send her home. At this point, he didn't care about anything else, and Yu Yaoniang and others would take care of it. Originally, it was thought that the young lady was just lost and panicked, and was suddenly frightened by a dark horse as big as Aze, and it was possible that she fainted. Unexpectedly, the young lady cried and begged for help after waking up. Yu Yaoniang had no choice but to report to Li Ju. She said that she was originally promised to someone else, and her mother took money from another family and married her off to 2 men, the second of whom was an old pervert with 18 concubines. She ran away because she was afraid of being caught and married off to someone else. Li Ju said she lied. There is only one road here, and there is a wall at the end. To the east is the west corner gate of our house, and the west gate has been blocked. If she came into this alley, the people who caught her would be able to see the corner at the entrance of the alley. How could they let her escape? Besides, she doesn't look like someone who just ran away. Her breathing and heartbeat are not right. They are very stable. If it were you, would you be able to run for your life without getting red in the face or out of breath? Yu Yaoniang was stunned for a moment, but after thinking carefully, she realized that it was true. She was so angry that she jumped up and down. Who is this person? She fell in front of our horses, and we kindly brought her back. We also asked doctors for medicine, and cooked porridge and soup for her. What's wrong with that? If she has a secret, she can just tell us directly that it is inconvenient to say it. Are we still going to get to the bottom of it? She is using lies to evade me, and I can't tolerate it anymore. Li Ju said, young girl is really in a difficult situation. She can't think of anything to say for a while, so she talks nonsense. There is no need to be angry with her. But since she is not honest, I'm afraid there is a problem. Since she is awake, let the doctor see when she can leave and send her away early. I'm busy with the marriage here, and it's not convenient for me to keep her. Oh. Yaoniang finally stopped jumping and walked out. After walking 2 steps, she turned around and said with a smile, I thought the master would keep her without any reason. After all, our master is the most compassionate to the poor and weak. Li Ju said, you are the only one who can be so poor. I know what kind of weak and lonely people should be well protected, and what kind of weak and lonely people are not worth what I do. Alright, go. Yaoniang came out of the main room and went directly to the guest room in the west wing. The young lady had already gotten off the ground and was walking around in the room. Seeing Yaoniang, who was in charge, coming, she knelt down in front of her. Miss, please be kind. I really have nowhere to go. I beg you to take me in. I will be your slave and maid without any complaints. Yaoniang took another look at this time and could see some problems. The young lady was dressed well. Her shirt, skirt, jacket, and trousers were either made of Hu silk or Xiang silk, and the embroidery on them was also brilliant with gold. She was not as pitiful as she said. The sense of incongruity was too strong. Yaoniang said with a stern face, it's not about our family. It's just that our master is going to get married soon. It's really inconvenient to have a strange woman who looks as beautiful as you, but whose origin is unknown. You don't know that our master has been looking forward to such a good daughter-in-law for more than 10 years. Now everyone is busy with decorations. How can he find someone who will catch the new wife's eye? If you really have difficulties, our master is willing to pay you to stay in the post station for a few days to avoid the limelight. You don't have to pay back the money. Just think of it as a celebration for our family's wedding. At this point, the young lady seemed very tactless if she wanted to stay, and she seemed to have some mixed thoughts. After Yaoniang finished speaking, she didn't ask her to get up or give her a way out. She sat aside and took a sip of tea. Because it was the strong tea in Beijing, she was not used to it, so she left it there. The young lady started to cry, but Yaoniang told the women in the family to take money and go to see the carriage. It seemed that she was going to be sent away without any chance of redemption. The young lady was really at a loss, and she threw herself forward, crying loudly, Miss, save me. I'm telling you the truth. Please look at me with pity, save my life, and I will build a longevity tablet for you. Yaoniang thought she was going to make up another lie, and said, you speak, I listen. I was originally a girl in Tingxianglao. The girl didn't believe me, so she asked a boy to find out. My nickname is Jiangxi La. People outside call me La Yu. I'm not an unknown person. I have been in Tingxianglao for 14 years. I finally saved up some money to redeem myself, and then I wanted to redeem myself and become a good citizen. Unexpectedly, my mother took my redemption money and said it was her money. She also said that I was in Tingxianglao, and everything I ate, drank, wore, and even a piece of straw and paper were all expenses of Tingxianglao. If I want to leave, I have to pay another 100 taels of silver, which is my worth, and 280 taels of silver for the 14 years of expenses. In addition, every time I get a business in the building, I have to pay 40% commission to the building, which is another 600 taels. I used to be able to do something by myself. I can only get 20%. According to my mother's calculation, I have to pay 20%. I really didn't want to be trapped any longer, so I ran away. However, my mother had more than a dozen big men chasing me all the way. I jumped over the wall and ended up here. Fortunately, I met you, otherwise I would have been caught by my mother and beaten again, or sent to the lowest class kiln. I dare not go to the post station or the hotel. The young lady doesn't know that my mother and the others are connected with each other and are well informed. As long as I show my head, I can't hide. The young lady is a girl from a good family, and I'm an old turtle who can't turn over in the mud pond. I dare not dirty your ears with dirty words or dirty things, but I really have no choice. Liu cried and talked for a while, and Yu Yaoniang felt dizzy. She probably heard it clearly. She must have escaped from some opera troupe or something like that. If she was caught, her life would be in danger. If it was true, she was the one who should be saved. Yu Yaoniang didn't know whether she should believe it or not, so she said, "Wait a minute, I'll go and tell the master first. If it's true, the master will make arrangements for you. If it's not true, then the promise to find you a place to live is no longer valid." Liu shed 2 lines of tears. Her face was rosy and smooth, and she said, "If it's still false, take me back to mom, and kill me without complaint." She said it in a decisive manner, and Yu Yaoniang couldn't find any flaws, so she went back and told Li Ju. Li Ju thought carefully about her outfit, and she looked like an above average brothel girl, delicate and beautiful, charming and lovely. A girl from a good family would not even mention brothels or brothels, let alone pretending to be a brothel girl. She was worried that she would be rejected if she revealed the truth, so she wanted to cover it up with an identity which was somewhat believable. Besides, it is impossible for someone who has not really experienced the things in Ji-yuan to know so clearly. Take the madam's account, for example. Who would have thought that the madam could calculate Jin's ashes to the point of leaving nothing behind if they had not experienced it themselves? Li Ju knew this because it was mentioned in the materials of the party history class in the modern plane. And a girl from a good family like Yu Yaoniang, even if she often went out, she didn't know what the Jinxianglao was and thought it was a troupe. She also thought that Jiangxilao's crying was not as gentle and delicate as Qian Hang's, and not like the actors in the troupe. Let them make up a set of rhetoric that would be full of loopholes. Chapter 430. Notice. Li Ju had already believed Liu's words, but he still asked an acquaintance in the capital to help him find out more. The man was Yunan's former student, and he also knew that Li Ju was going to marry the princess. When he heard that he was asking about Jinvat this time, he put on a strange smile and said, "All men understand." Li Ju wanted to explain, but he always felt that the more he explained, the worse it would be, so he had to let him go with a dark face. He returned to his study and thought about it, and wrote a letter to Princess Chengyang to inform her of this. Princess Chengyang was about to marry, and the palace was busy packing her luggage. At this time, Li Ju sent a letter, and the women who were still in the palace couldn't help but look at her with teasing and envy. Princess Chengyang guessed that Li Ju was not a frivolous person, and the two had just met in the afternoon and had her afternoon tea. It didn't make sense for him to write a letter to express his feelings at this time, so she begged for mercy, so that these sisters who had learned to be frivolous would forgive her and let her go back to read the letter herself. As a result, the letter said such a thing. Chengyang was amused and a little angry and replied that he shouldn't worry about her jealousy. She was not the reincarnation of a jealous person, and she was jealous for no reason. She had seen Li Ju's character for so many years, and she knew in her heart that he was a good person, so she naturally trusted him. Saving people was not a bad thing, although the person he saved was a Jinv. That person was not the Jinv he wanted to be, and he had no intention of doing anything, so how could he make her unhappy? Therefore, Chengyang replied to the letter with a little girl's pampering and scolded her, and then posted another thing after the letter, which was that Sanjiu bought land everywhere that year, and he wanted to buy the hill next to Yaochen Temple, so he entrusted Master Wang Jun to write a letter to ask the landowner if he could sell the hill. At that time, Chengyang had already set off to Jinling, and the letter fell into the hands of the queen. The queen would not read Chengyang's private letters, so she kept the letter there and waited for Chengyang to come back to read it himself. This wait was until this time, when she was packing her luggage and counting her letters and documents, and then Chengyang found it. At this time, Sanjiu would no longer want the land of Yaochen Temple. Chengyang would naturally take the land with her when she married Li Ju, so the Liuan Textile Factory No. 2 built on the mountain and the technical station supervised by Chengyang were simply given to Chengyang along with the affiliated industries. However, Li Ju kept the house, farm, shares of music clothing store, and shares of the textile factory in Jinling for Sanjiu. When Sanjiu was getting married, Li Ju and Chengyang gave her a piece of property in the capital. Chen Guiyang provided land, people, houses, and connections, and Li Ju paid for things and built a comprehensive women's commercial street in the city for Sanjiu, which integrated textiles, weaving and dyeing, embroidery, clothing, jewelry, small items, and other women's expenses. At the entrance of the street was the self-service restaurant opened by Chen Guiyang and Sanjiu, and at the end of the street, near the northeast of the bustling city center, was the location of the Chen Guiyang Women's School. In ancient times, women's social activities mainly involved three things: burning incense, playing cards, and attending banquets. This commercial street was built for burning incense, playing cards, and attending banquets. It only received women and not men. The rich can enjoy the hospitality of modern 5-star luxury hotels. If they stay in a card-playing room for a long time, they will feel more comfortable than at home. Those who are tight on money can also make an appointment to come out and relax. At least they can walk around in this place, and there are many new things to see. They can't afford those new clothes, new jewelry, and new operas, but they can also learn to make them at home. Chen Guiyang mentioned this matter in his reply to Li Ju, which made up for the previous issue of the ownership of the land of Yaochen Temple. When Li Ju received the reply that day, he couldn't help but fall into deep thought. He really didn't think that Chen Guiyang might be jealous or something. As a prospective husband, he felt that it was his duty to keep a certain distance from other women regardless of whether his wife was jealous or not. This is what his father insisted on for many years. When his father was in a high position, he went out to banquets and didn't know how many people paid for him. His father was so hard-hearted that he didn't even look at a pretty girl who fell to the ground in front of him, let alone help her up or hug her. His mother, Ms. Liu, was very rough-tempered. At that time, a very beautiful 18th-tier celebrity came to her house every day, and her ulterior motives were almost overflowing, but Ms. Liu didn't notice it at all. Li Ju's sister asked his father, "Our mother doesn't care at all." The girl cried so miserably. "It won't be a problem if you take care of her and send her away immediately so that she won't bother me every day." His father said, "Whether your mother cares or not is her business. Whether I can take care of other girls is my business. How can you confuse the two things? Go away, don't get in the way. Your mother doesn't care because she is relieved that I have behaved well over the years." As he said this, his father warned his brothers, "Listen carefully, when you get wives in the future, you must make your wives feel at ease. A harmonious family is the foundation of everything. If your wife is jealous, it means she cares about you, but if she is jealous, she will make a fuss. How can this family make trouble? So, you must take care of yourselves." Li Ju felt that his father was right. The men in the Li family had always been able to control themselves. But maybe his father should have brought his daughters and nieces with him when he said this, because now the only person in the family who is sympathetic to women and has countless girlfriends is his sister. If his sister were a man, she would not have enough legs to split with. In short, things went smoothly, and Li Ju had developed a good habit of guarding the house, staying away from trouble, and making his wife feel at ease. And the beauty of Chen Guiyang is worth his persistence. The next day, Yunnan student wrote back to him, saying that what Liu said was true. It was true that there was an out-of-date jinv named Jiangxi La in the Hingxianglao who ran away. Yesterday, the madam was jumping up and down to catch people everywhere. It is said that the girl ran to the territory of a rich family, and the madam was afraid of getting into trouble, so she didn't follow. Jiangxi La is in her 20s this year. She looks pretty good, with a good skin and flesh, as soft as cotton. There are at least 800 patrons in the city. When she ran away, there was also a scholar who knew a few people and sighed with him, saying, "It's a pity that I haven't saved enough money to sleep with her once." As for why Jiangxi La ran away, what would happen if the girl who failed to escape was caught, and what the low-class broken kiln that Jiangxi La was so afraid of was like. The gossip got all the information, and the details and rumors inside were enough to make Li Ju vomit. Li Ju suppressed his nausea and found out that Jiangxi La had already saved enough money to redeem herself. Even if she didn't save, the money she earned from receiving customers over the years was enough to buy a man of her age with gold. How could it not be enough? However, after the madam's account book was calculated, even if she sold herself to the end of the world, she would only owe more and more. So Li Ju used a pocket watch as a reward and asked Baodating to help him get back Jiang Xila's indenture contract and then let the madam let Jiang Xila go. Baodating was well informed and had many friends in the underworld. Li Ju would inevitably have to suffer a few blows from the butcher's knife when handling this matter, but it was easy for Baodating to handle it. He calculated that the girl had saved enough money on her own, and she was too old to earn much money, so she was no longer a hen that laid golden eggs. With his favor, he could exchange a table of wine and food for a meal with a middleman, and the matter would be guaranteed to be settled, so he agreed without hesitation. Chapter 431 Sisters. The facts were similar to what Li Ju thought. Baodating took out his pocket watch, bought a gift, invited a famous female guest in Beijing to help, invited a famous scholar to accompany him, and invited the person behind the Tingxiang Tower to have a good meal. In total, he spent more than 100 taels of silver and gently wiped out the matter. The next day, Baodating asked someone to deliver Jiang Xila's indenture, but none of Jiang Xila's savings, including money, rice, jewelry, clothes, calligraphy, and paintings, were delivered. In other words, Jiang Xila had nothing else on her except the clothes she wore when she escaped. Jiang Xila's whereabouts suddenly became very difficult. She wanted to make a living on her own, but she didn't even have a place to stay. Even if she pawned her jewelry and clothes, she could only buy a few acres of thin land. And she was a single woman and a girl from the red light district. She didn't know anything except serving men. It was not easy for her to be self-reliant with a few acres of thin land. Jiang Xila wanted to return home, to seek refuge with her relatives and friends, but she had relatives and friends there. She had been passed around many times before she ended up in the capital. She had no idea where her hometown was, what her name was, or who was in her family. The money she got from pawning her clothes was only a few dozen taels, and with the money Li Ju helped her with, it was just enough to cover her travel expenses. And where should she go? Who would protect her along the way? Everything was unknown. Jiang Xila took the indenture and threw herself into Yaoniang's arms and cried. This time she really cried, crying for her hard work and for being rootless. She even wet her handkerchiefs with tears. Yaoniang thought that she might stay at Sanjiu's property to work for a few days. After all, she could read, so she could do the accounting in the room and record the things in and out of the warehouse. Of course, she wouldn't cause trouble if she didn't go out. After Li Ju and Cheng Yang got married and were going back to Jinling, she would take her to Jinling with them. Jiang Xila was unfamiliar with Jinling, so she could put aside the past and start over. Therefore, Yaoniang comforted her and said, "The master is the kindest person. Like you, I was really helpless and almost dying, but was picked up by the master and raised as a human being. I will go and talk to the master, and he will definitely keep you. I can't say whether you will become rich or powerful, but at least you will have enough food and clothing and live in peace." Jiang Xila sobbed and said, "Thank you, young lady. Since I was a child, except for my sister, no one else has spoken to me so gently and carefully and cared about me. Even if I die, it won't make a difference to others." Yaoniang heard that this seemed to contradict her previous account of her life, so she asked, "You have a sister? Didn't you say you don't remember her?" Jiang Xila shook his head. "I don't remember who my sister is. I seem to have just regained some memories when my sister and I separated. I was bought by my parents and lost contact with my sister. I don't know her name, nor do I know where she is. Later, she was changed hands so many times, and I remember even less. I only remember my sister seemed to call me Zugua. Maybe my last name is Zhu. Zugua?" Yaoniang muttered. Jiang Xila's pronunciation was a bit strange, closer to the rapid pronunciation of Xiaogao with half of the ending sound swallowed. She read it 3 times and pronounced it as Xiaojia. Jiang Xila nodded repeatedly. "Yes, that's the name. I can't pronounce it very well, but I've heard it before, and it sounds like the dialect in Jiangnan. Maybe I'm from Jiangnan." Yaoniang asked, "Then, do you remember anything? For example, are there any trees or rivers next to your home?" Jiang thought hard, then shook his head. No, I can't remember. I have the impression that I was always sold everywhere. In the morning I was at Zhang's house, and in the evening I went to Zhao's house. I've lived in all kinds of families. I remember there was a tree next to the house, but it wasn't necessarily my own tree. It might have belonged to one of my adoptive parents. The first 10 years of Jiang life were chaotic and ignorant, just like future Kaoa. He couldn't speak clearly. When he went to other places, he couldn't understand the dialect. How could he remember anything? But, when my sister and I separated, I had a bunch of green flowers in my hand that I could eat. It seems that I have been relying on that handful of green flowers to fill my stomach and survive. It seems to be elm money flowers. Yu Yaoniang was suddenly reminded of the past. When she heard this, she suddenly jumped up, closed the doors and windows, and then pulled Jiang into the inner room, and pulled off her skirt without saying a word. Jiang tried to stop her twice, and as if she suddenly remembered something, she quickly withdrew her hand from the edge of her skirt and rolled up her trouser legs. There was a thumb-sized red birthmark 3 inches above Jiang's right knee. After pulling off her right leg, Yu Yaoniang pulled off her left trouser leg and saw a crescent-shaped old scar just below her left knee. Although the scar has shrunk slightly over time, how could there be such a coincidence in the world? Jiang stared at her blankly, and Yu Yaoniang slowly sat down and said, "Your last name is not Zhu. That pronunciation is not Zhuguara, but Xiaogao. My sister was called Xiaogao when she was a child. I was called Xiaoyang when I was a child. We have an older brother named Jiazhu. In order to find a wife for him, my sister and I were sold, and we have never seen each other since then." Jiang seemed to remember something and called out Sister Xiaoyang, but with an unskilled accent from the southern part of Hualien province. Yu Yaoniang looked at her, and she also looked at Yu Yaoniang. They had long forgotten each other's appearance. Until this moment, the image of the sisters who depended on each other and were deeply buried in their hearts became clear again. Jiang called out twice more, and then gently moved closer to Yu Yaoniang's arms. Yu Yaoniang hugged her shoulders tightly and called her sister, and the two of them cried softly. After crying for only a few times, Jiang suddenly stood up and wiped her tears. "Let's not cry. We finally meet again. There is no such coincidence in the world. We meet each other after thousands of miles and 20 years. This is a happy event. We should smile." Yu Yaoniang jumped out of the bed and said with a smile, "You are right. We should be happy. When the master first picked me up, he said he would help me find my sister. Let's pack up and go see the master. Let him be happy for me, and I can keep you. You don't know how to do anything now. Just live with me and get familiar with it slowly. Even if you have no livelihood in your life, your sister can support you." Jiang shook her head again. "I won't go. My sister is a girl from a good family, and she doesn't even know what a brothel is. How can my sister hold her head up high with a sister like me? Marquis Fengrang is a marquis, and maybe he can even become a duke in the future. My sister is his subordinate, his aide, and she has to take care of him a lot. The people she interacts with are all noble ladies. How can my sister have a sister as lowly as me? In that kind of place, instead of thinking about committing suicide, she still has the delusion of escaping from her lowly status and becoming a good woman. Her true heart is higher than the sky, but her life is cheaper than an ant. It's okay for me to lose face, but I can't drag my sister down to lose face." Yu Yaoniang didn't want to hear all this. The people in Lee Garden never paid attention to such things. She pulled Jiang to sit in front of the dressing table without saying a word, and helped her comb her hair that had just been messed up into a smooth low bun with 2 buns, the same as Yu Yaoniang's own hairstyle. While combing her hair, Yu Yaoniang continued to say happily, "If anyone dares to say anything to you, I will be the first to disagree, and the master will not agree even more. The Lee family really doesn't care about these things. Status and nobility are all bullshit. I will go to Her Royal Highness the Princess to plead my case, and Her Royal Highness is not an unreasonable person. Even if Her Royal Highness the Princess doesn't like you, we are not going to the inner house, and we will not have any conflicts with Her Royal Highness. Her Royal Highness is not a person who makes trouble out of nothing, so you can stay here with peace of mind and wait for me to keep you by my side in a fair and just manner." As Yaoniang said this, she picked a pair of small hairpins with bee velvet flowers from her head and gave them to Jiangxi to wear. She kept a bunch of hibiscus and small tankeo flowers for herself. When she moved her sister to look in the mirror, she found that the two sisters were really a bit similar. Let's go and report to the master. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 430 To the Wolf is Coming. Li Ju is very conscious now. Yaoniang happily brought Jiangxi to pay respects. Li Ju was very happy to know that she had found her sister, but he still had to keep a distance and never get close to her casually like before. Yaoniang explained the whole story and looked at Li Ju eagerly, hoping that he would agree to keep Jiangxi. Li Ju no longer had the heart to joke with them and followed her wishes and arranged it. This sister let Yaoniang take her to learn the rules of the Li family first and then arrange work for her after Jiang confirmed what kind of career she would like to have in the future. During the study period, the Li family took care of Jiangxi's food and drink, and Yaoniang insisted on paying for other expenses herself. Li Ju knew that Yaoniang was very rich now, so he let her do it. Jiangxi was as stubborn as her sister. She sold the clothes and headdresses she wore and exchanged the money for it in the account office as her own food money. 3 meals a day and supper could last for more than 2 years. The two girls were very independent and refused Li Ju's suggestion to support them with money from his account. However, Li Ju still asked the kitchen to prepare a small banquet to celebrate the reunion of Yaoniang and her sisters, and privately gave each of the two girls a red envelope as a congratulation. People who had a good relationship with Yaoniang, such as Gizi and Aunt Wu, also secretly gave a few favors. The amount was not large, but it was all real money, or food and cloth, that could be used immediately. These favors and red envelopes alone were enough for Jiangxi to live in Li Garden for 10 or 8 years, not to mention Yaoniang's huge dividends. Yaoniang had already combed her hair, so even if she would not have a husband and children, she could support 10 more Jiangxi. After the banquet was over that day, Jiangxi changed into Yaoniang's new clothes, combed her hair like her sister's bun, did not wear makeup, did not wear jewels, and was very plain from head to toe. Except for her slightly timid behavior, she was 100% a girl from Li Garden. Since Jiangxi had acknowledged her elder sister and was a good citizen, she should not use the nickname given by Tingxiang anymore. She followed Yaoniang and changed her name to Li Dang. Usually, she was just called Dang Girl and Dang Niang. Every day, Dang Girl would just wander around the courtyard where she lived with Yaoniang, never leaving for a moment, and was very obedient. After a few days, everyone felt that Dang Girl and Yaoniang were indeed from the same family, and both were honest and decent people. It seemed that she had to be shrewd and calculating in order to make a living, which was against her will and harmful to her health. So everyone couldn't help but pity her a little more and treated Dang Girl like their own daughter everywhere. Dang Girl also returned the favor. Although she didn't like to go out, if someone asked her for help, Dang Girl would rush to agree for fear of neglecting the person. After a few visits, Dang Girl quickly integrated into the interpersonal relationship of Li Garden. After finding her sister, Yaoniang felt that the biggest regret in her life was gone. From then on, she could work seriously and happily every day. She put down the biggest stone in her heart. Dang Niang was also very happy. She had never been so relaxed in her life. Every morning, she woke up with her sister, washed together, and combed each other's hair. When her sister went out to work, she found something to do at home. She cleaned everywhere, mended clothes, and made some small decorative items. When she was free, she read a few pages of books and articles. If someone asked her for help, she would help. At a certain time, she would eat and rest with her sister. In the evening, she could chat about family matters. When she was free, mainly Yaoniang talked, and Dang Niang listened. Dang Niang had nothing to say about her own experience, and she didn't want to recall it. Yaoniang described her own experience to Dang Niang, As if Dong Niang was just like her, who was also rescued by Li Ju when she was in danger and grew up to this age in health and safety. Dong Niang, who is busy from morning till night every day, has no time to feel sad, and she doesn't feel tired. Her heart is free, her body is free, and being busy is a good medicine to heal the heartache. No one here looks down on her, and no one will look at her with eyes that make her feel sick and disgusted. There are young guys with shy faces and evasive eyes, but they are simply fond of and admire her. There are also elderly people who dislike her for being immoral, but seeing that she is not a frivolous and dissolute person who lives in seclusion, that little bit of dislike has turned into awkward sympathy. It's a pity that such a plain and fulfilling life is short after all. It was already the middle of July, and there was only half a month left before Li Ju and Cheng Yang got married. The etiquette officer took Li Ju to rehearse every day, and Yu Yaoniang also entered a state of nervous inspection everywhere. She went out early and came back late every day, and the house became empty. Dong Niang was wearing a cool gauze jacket and bamboo shirt, and a white silk waist skirt painted with ink. She was sitting under the eaves on the north side of the house reading a book. The textbook in Li Ju's study talked about how the rules of Li Garden came about, why we should wash hands frequently and ventilate more, why water should be boiled before drinking, etc. The summer in Chang'an is very hot. There are dense ancient trees planted on the north side of the house. The corridor under the eaves is not exposed to sunlight all day long due to the eaves and the shade of the trees. It is a good place to cool down. Dong Niang was fascinated by the book when a boy outside the courtyard asked her to count the gauze. Dong Niang hurriedly put down the book and walked to the gate of the courtyard. The entry and exit registration of these things for Yu Yaoniang and Dong Niang was all handled by Dong Niang. Yu Yaoniang understood that she wanted to do something within her ability. It happened that Dong Niang did write neatly, so Dong Niang learned modern digital counting methods and the use of account books and took office. This time she didn't think much about it. As she walked to the door, she rubbed her hands and calculated today's expenses. Going around the house and arriving at the front yard, there is a moon-shaped partition without a real door panel, so you can see outside as soon as you raise your eyes. As soon as you raise your eyes, Dong Niang is frightened out of her wits. The person who delivered the things was a little errand girl, a temporary worker hired by the Li family in the capital, which is not important. Dong Niang would recognize the strong woman carrying a load on her shoulder, even if she turned into ashes. This woman named Yu Yaoniang is one of the thugs of Tingxiang Lao, and she has a lot of ideas. She is the most vicious when torturing people. The girls in Tingxiang Lao all tremble when they see her. Dong Niang can't control her shaking, and her teeth are chattering. Yu Yaoniang has an honest and simple face, and loves to laugh, so she can fool people who don't know the truth. She stuffed a handful of nuts into the little girl, who led the way, coaxed her for a while, and said, "There are a lot of scattered cloths inside. The shopkeeper asked me to talk to the master, and it will take some time. I don't want to delay your business. I will deliver the nuts and leave by myself." The little girl was at the age of playing, and after hearing this, she pocketed the nuts, said hello to Dong Niang, and ran away. Yu Yaoniang picked up the frame of gauze and smiled at Dong Niang. "Don't you recognize me? You want to talk in this place where people come and go?" Dong Niang really didn't dare, so she had to lower her head and lead Yu Yaoniang to her room. With the door closed and the window half open, Yu Yaoniang sat down on the main seat without any courtesy, crossed her legs, and looked around her room unscrupulously. "Miss, you escaped just for such a shabby place. Oh, look at this bed and this table. What kind of coarse tea do you drink? What kind of adobe cotton cloth do you use? Don't you think it's uncomfortable? It's worse than the embroidery room of the lower class girls in our building, right? Look at your hands. They are rough. You must have worked hard, right? Isn't life just to make a living? If you can make money by lying down in the building with your legs spread out, isn't it more comfortable than here? Miss, you are really unpredictable. Others want your good skin and flesh and can't get good money, but you leave your good land uncultivated for nothing." Chapter 433 Threat. Miss Dong was frightened by Yu Yaoniang so much that her voice began to stutter. I'm willing to follow me, a young lady to live a hard life. I have redeemed myself, and I'm no longer a girl in Tingxiang Tower. If you say that again, I will tell the housekeeper to kick you out. Yu Yaoniang didn't care. Just tell me, just tell the housekeeper that I bullied you. What's the big deal? If you have the guts, tell everyone what tricks and abilities you, a little bitch, have in the building, so that everyone can open their eyes. Yu Yaoniang stood up, with her hands hanging down, and approached Miss Dong step by step. You want to fly away when your wings are strong enough, and the filth on your feet is not washed clean. You want to be a good person, and want to be a lady of a decent family, but you don't even consider whether you are worthy. Do you dare to say that you are a jinv? Which young lady uses a jinv as a personal maid mother? Do you dare to say that you take on 4 or 5 shops a day, and your hair and toenails are dirty and festering? Do they know that you have a daughter? Miss Dong shrank smaller and smaller, until Yu Yaoniang mentioned her daughter. She suddenly stood up and shouted, "She's dead. You are not human. You even brought out a dead child. You will go to hell." Dead? I don't think so. That girl seems to be 7 or 8 years old this year. You have seen her. She is the little girl who does laundry downstairs. Her name is Kishan. Hey, that little nose, little eyes and little mouth. Isn't she really sweet? Miss Dong immediately remembered who she was talking about. It was a little girl who was brought here 3 years ago to learn to serve people. Because she was beautiful, her mother wanted to sell her for a good price, unlike other girls who were bought and combed as soon as they looked like a person. When Miss Dong was still in Tingxianglao, this little girl brought her clothes for changing every day. Miss Dong thought she was beautiful and often gave her snacks and fruits she bought. Kishan's ambition was to become the top girl in Tingxianglao. Miss Dong was completely numb. The girls in Tingxianglao were not allowed to keep their children. If they got pregnant, they would have the babies aborted. If a bowl of medicine didn't work, the thugs would beat the girls' abdomens violently until the babies were aborted. Many girls lost their lives in the torture of the tiger wolf medicine and the tiger wolf men. She herself almost died. She drank so many abortion pills and was beaten so many times, but the child was still there and she didn't die. In the end, she gave birth to a daughter. She only took one look at it and fainted. When she woke up again, her mother told her that the child was dead. Darn girl didn't dare to ask whether the child was dead or thrown away. She could only think that she and the child were not destined to be together. However, she secretly burned some clothes and gold ingots for her during the Zhongyuan and Qingming festivals to make her feel at ease. Now listening to this voice, the mother took her daughter away at that time, but she raised her as a jinv. She should have thought of this earlier. Her mother even dragged her own daughter out to entertain customers. The girl was 17 or 18 years old and was tortured to death by several customers. Her mother extorted a sum of money and bought a dozen girls. How could she let her own daughter go if she treated her like this? Miss Dong was immediately heartbroken and tears fell on her clothes. Yu Yaoniang liked to see these girls who made money lying down dying under her hands. Miss Dong's tears and painful expression would undoubtedly only make her more excited. But after all, they were on someone else's territory and accidents could happen at any time. Yu Yaoniang did not dare to just care about her own happiness. She had to do what the madam told her to do. Enough. Stop crying. I thought something had happened to you. I came to you today because I have something good to tell you. If you succeed, Mom will send Yu Yaoniang back to reunite with you. Otherwise, you can just wait to see your daughter being sold to a low-class brothel. Yu Yaoniang said with a giggle, don't you remember what a low-class brothel looks like? If there really comes a day when your daughter loses her virginity, I will definitely take you to see it, so that you, as her mother, can be happy. Darn girl angrily said, you are shameless. You are so shameless. My daughter is only 8 years old. Are you still human? This little bit of accusation was not painful at all. In Yu Yaoniang's eyes, it was just like the little resistance of a mouse that was teased by a cat and was forced into a desperate situation. It pleased her very much. Leo, whether we are human or not depends on whether you love your daughter. You just do the things for your mother obediently, which means she loves your daughter. What your mother wants you to do is not difficult at all, and it will be good for you. If you do it, you will have a good life in the future. Isn't it good? What did she ask me to do? Ask Marquis Fengrang to take you as his concubine. If Marquis Fengrang has any movements in the future, you must inform us. Marquis Fengrang is the prince consort. If I'm asked to be his concubine, isn't this forcing me to die? The princess has a good temper. How could she force you to die? The previous prince consort took in a cousin and gave birth to a bastard. Now the cousin and the bastard are eating and drinking well with the princess. Besides, with your means, even the officials in this mansion recognize you as their sister. Is it difficult to conquer a silly and kind wife? If you can't do it, it means you are deliberately slacking off. Then, don't blame mom for asking Kishan to do something. Miss Dang fell to the ground and cried bitterly. I can't do it. I really can't do it. Yu Yaoniang, please help me, beg mom. I'm willing to spend 10 times the money to redeem Yu Shan, but I really can't do it. I'm not a beauty, nor a talented woman of poetry and books. I'm just a lowly jinv. Some things can only be done by a jinv. Look at your little face. I feel pity for you. Which man wouldn't be moved? Be more attentive in bed. There is no man you can't get. Yu Yaoniang bent down and gently pinched Miss Dong's cheek, which was tearful. I'll leave first and wait for your good news. But don't let mom wait too long. Yu Yaoniang copied a few valuables from Miss Dong's room and stuffed them into her sleeves and took them away, leaving Miss Dong sobbing in the room. Dong's Iog cried for a long time and then thought of the things that had not been done yet, so she dragged her body like a wandering soul, putting things in order and explaining things that should be explained. It seemed that she did nothing in the whole day, and it seemed that she did everything. When it got dark, Li Ju and Yu Yaoniang, who had been busy all day in the princess's mansion, came back. Dong's Iog hurriedly washed her face again, put on a little powder to cover her red and swollen eyelids, and forced a smile to greet them and help set the table. Yu Yaoniang changed into home clothes, and her hair bun was taken down, loosened and braided into a braid. She took a glass of boiled water and slumped down in the chair like an old man who had come home to relax after a busy day. At a glance, all the dishes were her favorites. She knew that her sister must have told her about them in the kitchen, so she smiled and said, "Have you eaten? I've been very busy these days and couldn't take care of you. If you have any questions or problems, you must tell me. Don't keep it in your heart." I've eaten. I had a bowl of braised chicken with dried bamboo shoots and a bowl of shrimp and gourd soup. I'm still full now. Everyone is fine. I'm just wandering around the house. I'm not going anywhere. There's nothing to do. Oh, the satin and cloth for making autumn clothes have been delivered from the cabinet outside. I counted them and put them in the small utility room at the back. I'll make 2 sets of clothes for my sister to make. And the neighbors next door bought 2 baskets of clams, but they don't know how to cook them. They have already burned 1 basket and dare not touch the remaining one. Thinking that we came from the seaside, they sent a message to ask us to write a recipe. And Miss Dong spoke naturally, but Yu Yaoniang could tell something was wrong from her voice, expression, and the makeup she hadn't used for many days, but had used again today. Sister, are you worried about something? Chapter 434, Fighting Evil 1. Miss Dong didn't want to say it at first, but the first lesson she learned after coming to Li Yuan was to learn to find her master when she had problems, and not to be arrogant and imagine that she could handle everything by herself. Li Yuan did not encourage individual heroism. Miss Dong's master was her sister Yu Yaoniang, who was also the master of several new short-term workers in the garden. Considering that Yu Yaoniang usually had a heavy burden, the number of Yu Yaoniang's apprentices was much less than that of Aunt Wu and Gizzy. There were few apprentices, and there was nothing to do, so this was the first time that an apprentice had encountered trouble. Miss Dong hesitated for a long time, feeling ashamed for hiding the fact that she had given birth to a daughter, regretting that she had caused trouble to her sister and the host family, and being anxious because she didn't know what would happen to her daughter in Tingxiang Lao. Yu Yaoniang kept asking, and Aunt Girl made up her mind and knelt down beside Yu Yaoniang's chair. "Sister, I didn't mean to hide it from you, but really, I really thought I gave birth to a daughter before, and she was taken away by the brothel owner right after she was born, saying that she was dead. Today, the brothel owner came to my house and threatened me with your cousin's daughter's life, forcing me to do something for them. I really don't want to, but my daughter is in their hands. Yaoniang was only a little over 20 years old, and she was also shocked to suddenly become an aunt. When Dong Niang told her what happened in the afternoon, Yaoniang quickly discovered two key points. Dong Niang's child was in the hands of the brothel owner, and what the brothel owner threatened Dong Niang to do was definitely not simple. Yaoniang couldn't solve the two problems by herself, so she made a quick decision. Do you believe me? Believe me, let's go find my eldest brother. I don't dare. I did such a shameful thing. I don't dare to go to the master. Let's raise some money privately to redeem her. The madam loves money, and she will definitely be able to get it done with money. Sister, first, you are the victim. No matter who is shameless, it is not your turn to be shameless. I'm your sister. I did not protect you well. This is my fault. What is your fault? Second, it is true that the madam loves money, but what you said just now, she asked you to harm the master, which shows that she is plotting something big. How much money do we have? Even if we have, it is not reasonable to give them a bargain of 100,000 or 80,000. Third, the master is our elder brother. Since he is our elder brother, we are a family. We are a family and we should not say two things. We are wholeheartedly doing good for our elder brother, and he will naturally do everything for us. Whether it is to catch the motive behind the madam or to rescue the child safely, neither of us can do it, so of course we have to ask our elder brother for help. Let's go and find our elder brother quickly. This matter must be resolved quickly, and it is best to kill him by surprise. Dong Niang had a faint hope in her heart. She wiped her tears, and wiped off her makeup. Time was too tight, so she only rubbed her eyelids and cheekbones red. But she didn't care about that. She hurriedly followed Yaoniang to the upper room. Li Ju's bedtime activity every night was basically copying books. Today, he copied some things about the school's structure, including administrative management, financial structure, rules and regulations, etc. No need to think too much. This is for Chenggyang to open a school. If it was just a simple copy, it would be simple, but Li Ju had to change some inappropriate content, and change most of the wording this time, so the whole progress was very slow. Li Ju copied for half a month, before he started to finish. After copying the structure and regulations, Li Ju had to copy a few textbooks that he thought were suitable, and could be used by Chenggyang, and give them to Chenggyang to choose. Maybe everyone in Chang'an thought that Chenggyang's girls' school was to train noble ladies, but Li Ju and Chenggyang knew that it was definitely not. Although Li Ju had not communicated with Chenggyang yet, he was confident that the girls' school Chenggyang wanted to run would not be as biased as the 3 obediences and 4 virtues. If he wanted to hand it over to Chenggyang on the day of the wedding, Li Ju had to act quickly. It was already July 21st, and their wedding was on August 1st, and the next day, August 2nd, was the emperor's birthday. So when Yaoniang and her sisters came to Li Ju's upper courtyard, they saw that the study was brightly lit with candlelight, which meant that they had not rested yet, saving the trouble of waking up and making more trouble. Yaoniang took Dong Girl and walked to the door of the study. With the sentence, "I have something important to discuss with my eldest brother," Li Ju really put down the things at hand, came out to open the door, and led them to the reception area at the other end of the study. Dong Girl was still a little afraid of Li Ju, so it was basically Yaoniang who relayed the information, and Dong Girl only occasionally added some information, such as who was Tink Xianglao's mother, and what kind of personality she had, such as Yu Yaoniang was 8 years old this year, and had a bit of a rebellious temper, etc. Li Ju was fine with other things, but when he heard that Yu Yaoniang was 8 years old, he couldn't help but frown deeply. "Your sister Qiu is 24 this year, right? In terms of age, you are younger than her, so I will assume you are 22 in real terms. Yu Yaoniang was born when you were 14 or even less than 14. Miss Dong couldn't help but tremble slightly, and replied in a trembling voice, I'm not. I didn't do it voluntarily. I know. Even if it was voluntary, how could a 13-year-old girl do it voluntarily? Whatever others say is the truth. This hateful old procuress. Your daughter is only 8 years old, and they actually use an 8-year-old child to threaten her mother. Is she still a human being?" Li Ju didn't care what Ting Xianglao was planning on him. His attention was all on the fact that Tingxiang Lao, this brothel, actually forced young girls to have sex. In ancient times, Jiuan was legal, and the time for Jinv to be married was often just over 10 years old, the so-called the tip of the Dao Kudzu and the beginning of February. Li Ju couldn't bear to see this, and he had wiped out all the Jiuan in Qingshan City. The fact that there were no Jiuan in Qingshan City over the years made him forget how complicated the outside world was, and how much darkness and stench were hidden in those filthy places. He couldn't clean up all the Jiuan in the capital for a while, because he was alone and weak, because he was changing people's traditional concepts. This was not Qingshan, where he had the final say, and no one believed that his industry would need so many young laborers, regardless of gender. He used the reason that the industry needed manpower and education to squeeze the Jiuan in Qingshan City one by one into bankruptcy, but he couldn't do that in the capital. Besides, those who can open Jiuan in the capital have some power behind them. However, he can definitely do something for Miss Dong. This little girl is really too pitiful. Li Ju walked around the room twice and had a rough outline of a plan in his mind. He asked Miss Dong, "Is there anyone protecting them behind Tingxiang Tower?" "Who is it?" "I don't know, but every month, the brothel owner will take the most beautiful girls among the new girls and a large sum of money earned that month to the home of a family surnamed Gao in the west of the city. I guess it might be that family. There are not many wealthy families surnamed Gao in Beijing, and even fewer living in the west of the city. The ones I can think of are Marquis Haining, General Fengdu, Jijiu of the Imperial Academy, and Marquis Yuming, the son-in-law of the former Princess Fengcheng. I don't know about the others." Li Ju replied, "Okay, I'll ask about these families first. I have to find the owner before I can beat the dog. And if I want to beat the dog, I'll just beat it to death with one stick to save a lot of trouble later. You just wait for a few days." Dong Niang bit the bullet and expressed her worries. "Will the brothel owner break her promise and bully my poor girl in these 2 days? I won't let this happen. I'll get someone to keep an eye on her. If that old procuress really is dishonest and forces young girls to have sex, I'll save her first, even if it means alerting the enemy. Relax and don't panic. Little mother, just stay with your sister for the next 2 days and put aside the things outside. It's almost done anyway." Chapter 435, Fighting Evil 2. As it was late, Li Ju first persuaded his 2 sisters to go back and rest, and he wrote 2 letters overnight. One was to Bao Dating, Yunnan's student, mainly to find out the backers of Tingxiang Lao. The other was to Cheng Yang. The madam of Tingxiang Lao had nothing to do with him, but she had such a dirty mind. It seemed to be Li Ju's own business, but in fact it was very likely to hinder his relationship with Cheng Yang. In this case, Li Ju had to tell Cheng Yang. After writing the 2 letters, Li Ju added another paragraph after Bao Dating's letter, hoping that he would come up with ideas to rescue Yu Yaoniang first, and he had provided all the people, money, and materials needed. But he was not familiar with the territory of the capital, and he didn't know what Jiuan was like, so he could only ask Bao Dating, who knew everything about the local area, for help. The 2 letters were sent out before dawn, and Bao Dating quickly replied. It turned out that the backer behind Tingxiang Lao was the branch of Yuming Hao, the former consort of Princess Fengcheng, but the one who was in charge now was no longer the former consort. After marrying the princess, the old Yuming Hao hired prostitutes for fun in front of the princess. At that time, Daong had just been established and still relied on the wealthy mansion. Princess Fengcheng asked the late emperor to make the decision but failed and soon died of depression. The late emperor and the late noble concubine forced the consort to die with him, and the title of Yuming Hao was given to Princess Fengcheng's adopted son, the son of the adopted daughter of the clan, that is, the current Yuming Hao Gao Yuan. Although he was a marquis, Gao Yuan was like his adoptive father, indulging in sensual pleasures and was ignorant. He lost his family business early, and now lives on the salary of the marquis and the money he received as a protective umbrella. Bao Dating easily got Dong Niang's indenture before, and it was also because Gao Yuan himself had no ability. As for Yu Yaoniang's matter, it was a bit tricky. It was not difficult to find a friend who liked to sleep with prostitutes, to keep an eye on Yu Yaoniang, and prevent her from getting into trouble, but it was very difficult to get Yu Yaoniang out. The madam had no intention of selling her, but instead kept a close eye on her. Yaoniang felt that the madam's intentions were not small, and it was probably not as simple as a few thousand taels of silver. To save people, we have to think long and hard. Yaoniang's ability to find out this far was far beyond Li Ju's expectations. Li Ju immediately sent back a letter of appreciation, half of which was labor fees, and the other half was for him to find someone to keep an eye on Cui Shan in Tingxiang Lao. In the morning, Yaoniang's reply arrived, and in the afternoon, Cheng Yang's reply also arrived. Cheng Yang was indeed very indignant about what Li Ju said about a Jiuan forcing a girl who had not yet reached the age of marriage to have sex. Of course, Cheng Yang and her parents would not say that she and Li Ju wanted to abolish a Jiuan. They only said that someone had already set their sights on her husband before she got married. She believed that her son-in-law was a good person, but she hated the person who came up with such a vicious plan, and hoped that His Majesty the Emperor would give her special power to let Li Ju investigate the matter thoroughly. His Majesty the Emperor was displeased to hear that his daughter's marriage was still being prepared, and someone had already plotted against it. A closer look revealed that the person who plotted against his son-in-law was actually a procuress from Jiuan. This made him and the queen even more disgusted, and at the same time, it also made him secretly suspicious. How dare a small pariah plot against the most noble princess of this dynasty? Is there really no one else behind this person? She wanted to find a concubine for Li Ju, but was it just a concubine and that was it, and there was no other calculation? This kind of thing cannot withstand scrutiny, and if you think about it too deeply, you will come up with something else. However, it was rare that Li Ju was so thoughtful. Not only was he not moved by women, he also took the initiative to find Cheng Yaoniang to explain. His Majesty was only satisfied with Li Ju's honesty throughout the incident, so His Majesty agreed to Cheng Yaoniang's request and ordered Li Ju to investigate the matter personally. He also sent his trusted eunuch, Jiuoza, the former supervisor of Cheoyang Palace, to assist Li Ju in case Li Ju encountered resistance during the investigation. His Majesty personally wrote, even if it is a relative of the Emperor, he cannot use his identity to escape, giving Li Ju considerable room to operate. Of course, he gave such a large operating space and also made considerable requirements. No matter what results Li Ju found out, he must report it to His Majesty the Emperor truthfully. As for whether to let the Queen and Cheng Yaoniang know, it depends on what the specific results are. The supervisor Jiuoza came to Li Ju to report early the next morning. This is a very handsome middle-aged man, proficient in various laws and regulations, full of poetry and books, without the inferiority or suspicion common in most people with physical disabilities. He is gentle, and it is not bad to say that he is a beautiful scholar. Although Li Ju was not a face lover, he liked such a kind person. Jiuoza also read the letter from Yaoniang. He was well informed about the affairs of the capital and immediately figured out the clue from Yu Minghao. However, the matter involved was very serious, so Jiuoza did not dare to tell Li Ju without the permission of His Majesty the Emperor. Jiuoza put the letter down and asked Li Ju, "My lord, what plans do you have for investigating this matter? Can you tell me?" Li Ju replied, "There is no hierarchy here. I feel uncomfortable when the Minister of Internal Affairs calls me a villain. It is not necessary to do so when there are no outsiders. As for the plan, I'm not rude to the Minister of Internal Affairs. I don't like this family. She squeezed the bones and marrow of the Jinv, forced the young girl to have sex, and threatened a mother with her daughter's life, to go against morality and nature, and give up her body. I despise it. I want to root it out." Jiuoza was stunned. It was not because of the name. When he first became the head of the study in Cheoyang Palace, 99% of the people in the capital did not dare to hear him call himself a villain, but Jiuoza could see whether they were afraid of his position, that he could give advice to the emperor at any time and influence the emperor's decision making, and had to flatter him on the surface and call him a eunuch behind his back. Or whether they really had no respect for the emperor. He could also see that Li Ju's words were sincere. "I have always heard that Marquis Fengrang is kind and courteous to others. Today, it seems that he is not just being polite. So Jiuoza is a little sincere when he talks to Li Ju. My lord, this plan, I have to think about it. If you pull this one out, there will naturally be the next one. My lord, you just want to pull this one out. What surprised Yu Yaoniang just now was that Li Ju was really an honest man. With such great power and freedom given to him, if it were anyone else, they would be able to use this matter to stir up a lot of waves. If they don't take the opportunity to deal with their political opponents and enemies, they are not the figures of the capital. Or at least they have to take the opportunity to get some benefits, such as getting involved in some industries that they couldn't get involved in before. But Li Ju really just wanted to deal with this Jian. It would be best if they could all be pulled out. But you and I both know that this is impossible. I can't take care of so many things on my own. I can only use the princess's name to deal with the one who ran into me and then make an example of him to scare the monkeys so that the lives of Jinva and other places will be easier. At least I can save up enough money to redeem myself. That's all. Li Ju didn't want to get involved in the capital. He knew that other Jian were probably like this, but what could he do? The most he could do was to use the incident at Tingxianglao as a warning to the madams, so that when they exploit the girls, they would not be as cruel as Tingxianglao did, and at least let them receive customers when the girls grow up. Yu Yaoniang said, okay, I get it. If it were just that, it would be very easy to deal with. The laws of this dynasty prohibit forcing girls of good character to become prostitutes. Tingxianglao has violated a taboo, and the officials will not investigate unless the people report it. The abduction and sale of children under 10 years old is invalid, especially those who abduct and sell children as slaves, who should be hanged. These 2 points alone, handled according to the law, would be enough to put Tingxianglao to death. As for Yu Minghao, officials of this dynasty are not allowed to visit prostitutes, and occasionally they hire prostitutes, but everyone turns a blind eye and lets it go. Yu Minghao was in cahoots with the Jian, which is a serious crime. If the madams give him up, then he can be punished for the crimes of forcing girls of good character to become prostitutes, and abducting and selling children. Chapter 436, Fighting Evil 3. Li Ju asked about the procedures in detail. If this matter is to be done, it must be done in a way that no one can find fault with it, so the procedures must be strict to avoid being caught by flaws. Lao Jiuo is familiar with this matter. Lao Jiuo has never made any mistakes in his work. As soon as Li Ju asked, he guessed it. Following Li Ju's questions, he gave him a popular science guide to the work of the Yang dynasty. The two compared the information and called Yaoniang to inquire about Tingxianglao carefully twice, which took a day and a night. In the end, they decided not to delay and reported to His Majesty the Emperor, and then took action the next afternoon. Li Ju currently has witnesses and confessions in his hands, Yaoniang and Yuyaoniang. Yaoniang provided a confession, and Yuyaoniang's age made her the best evidence. Yaoniang also confessed the new girls who were brought into Tingxianglao to learn to play the piano and sing songs. The older one was 12 or 13, and the younger one was 4, 5, or 6. The older ones were mostly pretty girls who had failed to learn other skills elsewhere, or who offended their masters when working for other families, and were sold to Tingxianglao by pimps. Among them, at least 4 of them, Wu, Xuanglu, Zixiang, and Han Gaiao, were daughters of good families who were abducted and sold. Han Gaiao was even the daughter of a poor scholar, whose original surname was Han. Among them, there were 7 or 8 children under the age of 10 that Yaoniang knew about. Yu Yaoniang wrote down Yaoniang's testimony and asked her to sign it. Then he took his men and went to the Jingshao Yamen, which was supposed to be responsible for this matter, with Li Ju. Most of the highest officials of the Jingshao Yamen in this dynasty were royal relatives who were in name only. The one in name only now was a brother of His Majesty the Emperor who was obsessed with alchemy. This nominal official did not really perform his duties. The real person in charge was Tang Liu, the chief of Jingshao. The nominal official did not care about worldly affairs. The rank of the chief of Jingshao was not high, and this Tang Chengshi was of humble origin, and his wife's family was also humble, so his position was very difficult. There are 10,000 kinds of officials in the world, and the most difficult one is the official of Jingshao Yin. In Chang'an City, throwing a stone can hit someone with a higher official rank than Jingshao Chengshi. It is quite difficult for Tang Changshi to display his talents. Most of the time, the most thing he did in this official position was to be used as a punching bag by various forces, and he was caught in the middle and could not please anyone. This time was no exception. The Yu and that Yu Minghao backed had been in trouble for more than a day or two. Not only this family, but also places like Mutant Pavilion and Hangxiu Shui who have been violating the law for many years, but he could not control it. There were a few times when he received complaints from the parents of abducted women and went to handle the case, but he was ridiculed by those old procuresses. He didn't know how much yin and yang humiliation he had heard. Therefore, when he first heard the intention of Ji Yuozha and Li Ju, Tang Changshi was very unhappy, and his spirit was gone. It's good that Feng Ranghao is a third-rank marquis. It's good that he will immediately become a top-level lord who enjoys the treatment of a super-rank duke after becoming a son-in-law. However, he has no real power. If he offends Li Ju, his fate may be miserable, but if he offends the real people in power who form cliques for personal gain, it will only be worse. Tang Changshi had a smile on his face. Out of respect for his son-in-law, he wanted to persuade Li Ju to restrain himself and save the little girl he wanted to save. That was enough, until Ji Yuozha asked for the imperial edict written by His Majesty the Emperor. Even if it is a relative of the Emperor, he cannot use his status to escape. Well, there is no hiding. If he does this, he will offend people, and if he doesn't, he will offend His Majesty the Emperor. Tang Changshi changed his mind and swallowed his words of persuasion. He immediately pointed out the people and followed the eunuchs and Li Ju to rush to Tingxiang Tower. The search of Tingxiang Tower can be said to be a grand occasion. The onlookers were crowded inside and outside. The peak customer flow of Tingxiang is around 3 PM after dinner and lasts until the original curfew time. After that, it is mainly customers who stay overnight to buy shops. At this time, Tingxiang is preparing for opening. The door is open, and the eunuchs and maids are sweeping and setting up everywhere. The madam is checking everywhere with full energy. If she sees a crying girl or a girl who is not dressed well, she will either slap her twice or scold her. There was a little girl who had just been there for 2 days and was still hot-tempered. After being slapped twice, she was so angry that she wanted to fight with the madam. The madam poked her head with a 1-foot-long sharpened ruler and kicked her from upstairs to downstairs. The little girl was only 10 years old. She had not eaten for 3 or 5 days and had only 2 bowls of cold water to survive. She was dizzy after stumbling from upstairs to downstairs, but she still chose to run away without hesitation when she saw the door in front of her. Even if she would be caught and taken back, even if she would be tortured even more cruelly, she still rushed to the gate without looking back. With this charge, she bumped into a person who was as strong as a copper wall. When she looked up, she saw that it was a strange young man. The little girl thought he was a pawn shop owner who had come early. She was so angry that she rolled her eyes and pouted. The brothel owner rushed down and saw such a group of young men in gorgeous clothes. Seeing that they had no expression on their faces and the leader was frowning, she thought that he was unhappy because he was bumped into. She smiled flatteringly and apologized. "Gentlemen, why are you here so early? My daughter is ignorant and has offended you. I will ask someone to deal with her and apologize to you. Please come in. Are you here to drink, listen to music, or discuss business?" The person who was thought to be the leader by the brothel owner was Li Ju. Li Ju picked up the fainted little girl and handed her to a eunuch beside him and said with a smile, "Don't you recognize me?" The brothel owner had seen countless dandy young men who thought highly of themselves and thought that everyone in the world should recognize them. She thought Li Ju was one of those people too. Hearing his official language, she guessed that he must be a serious young man with strict family education in the capital, so she habitually responded with flattering words. "Sir, you are joking. How many people do I recognize? I can't even enter the wealthy families. You must be the top young man, right? Only the young men from the real wealthy families I have never seen. If I have the honor of meeting you, I will never forget your imposing manner." Li Ju smiled and put away his expression. "You don't recognize me. How dare you arrange a concubine for me on your own initiative?" The old brothel owner was about to deny it, but suddenly remembered that she had asked Yu Yaoniang to do such a thing in recent days. She immediately knew that the person in front of her was none other than Marquis Feng Rang, and her face changed drastically. Li Ju said, "It seems that you have remembered. Tang Chengshi, Yu Yaoniang, please handle the matter impartially. I will just find my niece and leave." The madam then noticed that there was an acquaintance beside her, Tang Chengshi. When Tang Chengshi first took office, he wanted to deal with them, the Jian, but he was completely subdued by the backers behind them. How dare they come to our door again today? An ominous premonition came to her. The madam hid back in a cowardly manner and raised her voice to shout, "We are running a business. What nonsense are you talking about? Are you trying to find fault? Even if the case is brought to the Ministry of Justice, I will only obey the law. You ungrateful poor bastard, you come to me to extort money? Today, I will teach you that, even if you are a dragon, you have to coil up for me." The only response to her was an emotionless order, "Shut her mouth, and take her away." Chapter 437, Fighting Evil 4. Tingxianglao was built with great fanfare, but it also collapsed silently. Amid the discussions of the onlookers, the madam, Yu Yaoniang, eunuchs, thugs, were all taken away by Tang Chengshi and his men. The Jinv in the building, who were unwilling to leave, stayed in Tingxianglao. Those who were under 10 years old and were clearly good girls who were unwilling to sell their bodies were taken to the Jingshao government office as witnesses. Kishan, who Li Ju wanted to take away, was also taken to the government office as a witness. For Li Ju's sake, Tang Chengshi was the first to interrogate Kishan, record her confession, confirm that she was the daughter of Jiangxi La, a Jinv in Tingxianglao, and then let Li Ju take her away. Kishan didn't know the details of this and thought that Li Ju had bought her. She was very satisfied in her heart. He was a high-ranking official and handsome. So when she was taken away by Li Ju, the first sentence she said to him was, "Sir, are you going to redeem me or just buy me for 2 days?" Kishan's eyes were big and shining, but such clear spring-like eyes. Their owner said such horrible things in a childish voice. Li Ju thought of the girl's life experience and forced himself to suppress the discomfort. "Your contract of selling your body is invalid. I'm taking you home on behalf of your mother. You can call me Uncle." Kishan looked at him in confusion. "Uncle? That's your mother's brother. Let's go home." Li Ju spent some money and hired a woman from nearby to help carry Kishan back to Li's house. At the entrance of Li's alley, Yaoniang, Dong Niang, Gizi and others were looking forward to it. Dong Niang saw them from afar and could not wait to trot forward to take the Yuishan from the woman's hands, hugged her and cried for a long time, and thanked Li Ju while crying. Yaoniang, Gizi and others followed and persuaded them for half a day before persuading the mother and daughter to go home together. Li Ju told Dong Niang about the situation of Tingxianglao and the predetermined future outcome, and briefly mentioned that the same was true for other places. Feeling that the matter had been done, he only told Yaoniang to pay more attention to Yuishan and arrange her future course as well. After all, Yuishan had been trapped in Tingxianglao for 8 years, and she had learned nothing except being a customer. Li Ju did not agree with her idea and had to find someone to change her mind. After all, she was Yaoniang's cousin daughter, and Li Ju felt that he had an obligation to help her. These plans were simple, but how difficult it was to actually implement them was not mentioned for the time being. After the people in Tingxianglao were arrested, they initially clamored for Yu Minghao and others to clean up the broken government office, but later they could not stand it and confessed everything they should and should not say. And the Marquis of Yuming, whom they had been waiting for a long time, did come. However, it was Marquis of Yuming that Jiuozai was waiting for. Jiuozai and Li Ju parted ways and stayed in the Jingshao Yamen office, waiting for Marquis of Yuming to fall into the trap. Li Ju came from outside and didn't know the details inside. His Majesty the Emperor didn't want Li Ju to know these things. He seemed to have seen through Li Ju's attitude of not being interested in anything other than people's livelihood, so he subconsciously told Jiuozai not to disturb Li Ju. So after Jiuozai figured out the role of Marquis of Yuming in it, he had already set the whole plan. First, meet Li Ju's requirements, and then it will be His Majesty the Emperor's home court. So Marquis of Yuming led people to the Jingshao Yamen with great momentum to demand the person who was waiting for him, Yu Yaoniang, the supervisor of the pen, who was one of the most trusted confidants of His Majesty the Emperor. On weekdays, Marquis of Yaoniang even had to lower his voice when talking to him. At that time, the cold sweat on Marquis of Yaoniang's forehead fell to the ground and shattered into 8 petals. Yu Yaoniang sneered and ordered people to tie up Yaoniang and put him in a sedan chair and carry him to the palace to report. Before leaving, he also specifically told Tang Changshi, Feng Ranghao is now the person that His Majesty favors the most, and the wedding is coming soon. If his ideas do not violate the law of the country, you just listen to them. No one will dare to cause trouble to you, let alone stop you. If there are any, I will chop off their hands one by one. Tang Changshi understood. This meant that he was asked to deal with the Jian carefully according to Li Ju's wishes. Even if the powerful and nobles asked for mercy, he would ignore them and deal with them according to the law. However, he could not take care of other things. Tang Changshi then devoted himself to rectifying the atmosphere in the capital, and he did a good job. He took the opportunity to catch all the Jian, opera troupes, and brokers who bullied men and women, and abducted women and children. After checking the number of people, he ordered the innocent people who were abducted to return home, and ordered the charity organizations in the capital to take in children under the age of 10. After finding a temporary place for everyone to stay, he posted notices and issued documents everywhere, requesting local cooperation to find the families of the women and children who were trafficked. When doing these things, he did not forget to interrogate and convict. He handled all aspects very well. For the first time, his talent for politics was tested in practice, which laid a good foundation for his future official career. In the past few years, he had been muddling along in the history of Jing's Heyo, which was obviously not in line with the emperor's principle of employing people. It was not until this thorough investigation of the illegal behavior of Jian that he really showed his face. This is also a later story, and the current focus of His Majesty is still on Yaoniang. After Yaoniang was sent to the palace, he was greeted by a teacup thrown at him by His Majesty the Emperor in a rage. A cup of warm tea hit him on the forehead, hitting a goose egg sized bump on his forehead, and also sprinkled tea foam all over his head and face. Yaoniang did not dare to argue at all, and quickly knelt on the ground to plead guilty, kowtowed like pounding garlic. The emperor dismissed the others, leaving only his trusted eunuchs in front of him. He smiled instead of getting angry. Please forgive me, what is your crime? Yaoniang was speechless. Running a business? Obviously not. His father was running a business, and the emperor was inheriting his father's business. The emperor knew it, so there was no need to make trouble today. Besides, would the emperor be angry because of a business? When he ran into Yu Yaoniang head on without any preparation just now, the guilty conscience and the sense of urgency of impending disaster swept over his mind again. Marquis Yaoniang was silent for a long time, and said very unconfidently, Your Majesty, I shouldn't have let the madam make the decision and force girls from good families to sell themselves, and I shouldn't have turned a blind eye to their trafficking of children. I will never dare to do it again. I will die. You deserve more than death. You are about to die, but you still want to make excuses. The emperor heard that he was still trying to play tricks on him, and he was so angry that he laughed. Tell me the truth. You don't even know Marquis Fengrang, and we have no grudges or hatred with each other in the past or present, so why did you put people in his room? I'm his father-in-law, and I don't care about what happens in his room. Who are you to him? Why do you care so much? The sweat on Marquis Yaoniang's forehead began to drip again, but he did not dare to raise his sleeve to wipe it. He just lay down tightly on the ground again. I'm jealous of him, jealous of his sweet words to please your majesty. All men have 3 wives and 4 concubines, but he is the only one who always talks about 3,000 rivers, only 1 scoop, and he is praised by everyone, which makes me and my father like sex-hungry ghosts. I'm not convinced. Yes, not convinced. Really? His Majesty the Emperor walked down from the high seat with his hands behind his back, and walked slowly in front of Marquis Yaoniang for a few steps, neither speaking anymore, nor asking him to get up. Marquis Yaoniang could not see the emperor's expression, and he felt sore all over after lying down for so long, so he secretly moved his posture, and wanted to take a sneak peek. As soon as he raised his eyes, he met the emperor's deep eyes, and was immediately startled. Chapter 438, Wife's hands are not hands, they are a gentle universe. His Majesty the Emperor sneered again and kicked Yu Minghao out of the door. I know very well what you and some people I won't name are planning. I'm not old yet, but you can't wait to pave the way for my sons in advance. Your wife is the daughter of the Luo family, right? Your biological mother seems to be the aunt of the Shen family. What benefits did they give you to let you spy on the prince consort? What do you want to do with him? Frame him, or sow discord, or influence him subtly, or instigate and form cliques? You all have your own plans, and I'm not angry. As the saying goes, if a man does not work for himself, he will be punished by heaven and earth. At my age, you are all a bunch of idiots and cowards. It would be strange if you don't make plans. But I hate that you are so mean in your conspiracies and plots, which is not like a man. I hate that you harbor evil intentions and interfere to harm my daughter. You want to destroy her hard-earned happiness, and I will never allow it. Come on, take him away and beat him up, deprive him of his title, and make him a commoner. Let him reflect on his mistakes behind closed doors, and he cannot leave the house for 3 years. Yes, His Majesty, like Jiuoza, guessed that their real purpose was to go for the position of crown prince as soon as he saw the people behind the scenes. As long as he planted a spy next to Li Ju, he could calmly choose whether to advance or retreat and which prince to stand on. The problem is that it is the position of crown prince. The princes are fighting for it, and the power of judgment is in the hands of His Majesty. How can His Majesty tolerate their private interference? So His Majesty was quick and chopped off the arm of Yu Minghao that was stretched too long. Moreover, the 2 generations of Yu Minghao acted very eccentrically and were very unpopular. His Majesty would be lenient with them in the past for the sake of the dead. Today is the right time to deal with it and eliminate future troubles. As for the future, let's talk about it later. The most important thing these days is the marriage of my precious daughter. Li Ju spent 3 days dealing with Tingxianglao and resettling Dong Niang and her son. He will move to Chengyang Mansion or Fengranghao Mansion after his marriage, and this place will be empty. There were many Li family members, and they could not all be taken to Chengyang Prefecture. Some of the Li family members who could not be taken were left behind to help take care of Dong Niang and her son. So Li Ju kept them and asked them to live in Yaoniang's house. Dong Niang was grateful for the shelter she had gotten, and now her daughter was saved, and her sad grave was buried. She was so moved that she wanted to repay the great favor with her heart and soul. She knew that her status was not suitable for hanging around in front of the new Lai Wats, so she was even more grateful for Li Ju's arrangement, and did not feel that she was left behind at all. Later, Li Ju took some time out from his busy schedule to listen to the results of Tang Changxi and Jiuoza's handling. He learned that the atmosphere in the Yahang, Gaolan Wasi, Jiuanshuai and other places in the capital had changed, and that the Yuming Marquis was stripped of his title and went home to reflect on his mistakes. He knew that it was the result of the emperor's help. He was very satisfied with this outcome and did not ask any more questions. The waves caused by these things had just subsided, and it was the first day of August, the day of the wedding. Chengyang's remarriage was still from the palace, which was no different from the marriage of all the beloved princesses. So Li Ju's wedding was also from the palace to the Chengyang princess's mansion. The Chengyang princess's mansion was busy early in the morning, and Li Ju was pulled out to go through the procedures before dawn. He first washed and dressed in a formal dress and worshipped his ancestors at home. His ancestors were still floating in the modern plane. His Majesty the Emperor even asked someone to carve a tablet for his great-grandfather whose name he could ask, and compiled a family tree, and asked Li Ju to keep it well, and it would be used in his family's ancestral hall in the future. After worshipping the ancestors, you have to worship the ancestral temple of the heavenly family. Thank you. Obey the order. Send sacrificial texts and sacrifices. After a set of procedures, it was almost dusk when the princess was welcomed. Daang's wedding was held at dusk, and it usually ended at the hour of hay. Princess weddings are often lively with drinking, singing and dancing all night long, but Chengyang's remarriage wedding was simple at her own request. Even guests were not invited. They just had a dinner with their parents and siblings in the palace, and watched a song and dance prepared in advance to celebrate the emperor's birthday. That day, Li Ju wore the court dress of a super-class duke as a wedding dress, a golden crown, a red robe, a white jade scepter, and a dragon carved belt. His face was expressionless because of nervousness, but it was rare to show a very majestic face. Chen Guiyang also wore a standard dress of a princess who was higher than a prince. She held a newly cut ebony and gold inlaid dragon and phoenix round fan, wore a dragon and phoenix crown on her head, and had pearls hanging from her shoulders, each of which was as bright as the moon. The princess herself was slightly made up, with affectionate eyebrows and gentle eyes, and was 3 points more beautiful than the bright moon. The two stood side by side at the bottom of the steps, a pair of good sons and sons-in-law, which caught the emperor and empress's eyes, and made them extremely satisfied. Especially the queen. She still remembers that when Chen Guiyang married Prince Consort Xiaoyang, Prince Consort's face was full of pride. Chen Guiyang's face was shy and expectant, but she didn't like him. At that time, the queen thought it was nothing. Feelings, they grow out of being together. Facts have proved that she was wrong. Fortunately, Chen Guiyang finally met the right person who liked her, and she also liked him. At least at this moment, there was joy in the eyes of the couple. In the future, only they can go on, and the queen believes that two people who have been around for half a lifetime will be truly destined. His Majesty the Emperor is not as sentimental as the queen. He just thinks that his marriage is well done. Look, the man is handsome and the woman is pretty. How well matched. Li Ju recited a letter of thanks and a petition for marriage written by an official of the Ministry of Rights. His Majesty the Emperor said some encouraging words and then motioned for the queen to say something. The Empress was half relieved and half sad and waved her hand. I have nothing to advise you. I trust Bo Xiu's character, but I hope you don't get too wild when playing outside. Little bird still knows to go back to the old nest to see the old house every year. Don't forget that there are still your old father and mother in the capital. My daughter will follow your teachings. Chen Guiyang lowered her head embarrassedly. She was too much to go back for 3 years before. Li Ju breathed a sigh of relief, bowed to the emperor and empress, and replied, I will follow your teachings. After speaking, with the guidance of the master of ceremonies from the Ministry of Rights, he took the red scarf and led Chen Guiyang out. Although the wedding was not a big event, all the ceremonial guards were there. The procession to send off the bride was very long, winding for several miles, with colorful lanterns and fragrant mist. The musicians from the Pear Garden and the Music Bureau sang and danced on both sides of the road. Many people in the capital who slept late got up to watch the fun. When the team passed by Taifu Yang's house, the young scholar Yang went to bed out of spite, but couldn't fall asleep. Late at night, he heard the faint singing outside, so he quietly got up and leaned on the wall to look out. He saw that the divorced Princess Chen Guiyang became more and more moist, more beautiful, and more bold. In front of so many people, she reached out from the carriage and held the saddle of Prince Li. Prince Li simply got off the horse, jumped on the carriage, asked the coachman to get off, and drove the carriage forward himself. Princess Chen Guiyang came out of the carriage without avoiding suspicion and sat side by side with Prince Li. The two people wearing the most expensive dresses in Dayang under the emperor and empress snuggled together on the front board of the carriage and disappeared at the end of the road in the vast night. The young scholar Yang slapped the wall angrily, but it hurt him so much. So angry. But there was nothing he could do. His father even colluded with Master Wu to refuse to visit and give the royal family and Li Ju a cold shoulder, but he never expected that they didn't even invite guests. Wu, even angrier. How could Li Ju, who was being targeted by Scholar Yang and many other hidden people, think of these things? As early as when Chen Guiyang asked him to slow down the horse and grabbed his hand, he had already flown to the sky. After being single for 30 years, this was the first time he was so close to a woman who was not related to him by blood, and this woman was his wife. Just thinking about Chen Guiyang's tenderness and comfort, he already felt his ears warm. And this wife who aroused him was now leaning on his shoulder, like a tamed lamb, and like a lively cat that could occasionally cling to people. Li Ju controlled the carriage with one hand holding the reins, and with the other hand tightly holding his wife's hand. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 439 Sweet Life After Marriage 1. Li Ju opened his eyes, and what caught his eye was a bright red curtain embroidered with auspicious patterns of dragons, phoenixes and Ganoderma lucidum. He had never seen it before, and it looked very unfamiliar. He moved his body again, and there was a person lying next to him, tightly pressed against his arms, fragrant and smooth, very soft and warm. Li Ju shook his head, stunned for a while, and then realized that he was married and had a wife, and the person lying next to him was his wife. The sky was dim, Yu Yaoniang was buried in the shadows, and it was not clear, but the graceful outline could be vaguely discerned. Li Ju's movement affected her, but she just shrank into the thin silk quilt and did not wake up. Li Ju then got up quietly and carefully held the silk quilt tightly to prevent Yu Yaoniang from catching a cold in the slightly cool morning air. He picked up the hakama that was neatly placed beside him and put it on, and put on Yanju's 1000-layer cloth shoes. While putting on his coat, he walked out. He had come to see it twice before at Yu Yaoniang's invitation, and he was familiar with the place. The main room, where the couple lived, was a whole courtyard with 2 entrances. His room was in the east, and there were also various functional areas such as bedroom, living room, study, and washroom. Yu Yaoniang's room was in the west, symmetrical with his room. In the middle was a spacious hall. Behind the hall was a greenhouse, which could be used for any purpose. Behind it was the garden wall and the alley. However, Li Ju felt that, since the couple were one, they should live together, but they only needed to prepare a corner in the study. Yu Yaoniang readily agreed. After the rearrangement, the couple's bedroom was placed in the greenhouse in the north. It was about 70 or 80 square meters in size. It was separated by screens and gauze cabinets. The window in the north faced the garden, and there was a flower viewing couch below. Opposite was a place similar to a treasure house with many treasures and antiques. To the south were several gauze cabinets. Outside the partition was part of the original greenhouse, which was converted into a near room, where the trusted maids were on duty at night. Li Ju walked almost without sound, unless he deliberately stepped heavily to remind others. So he pushed open the carved and glazed shoji door between the gauze cabinets, and the maids who were eating breakfast outside were all startled. "My lord." According to the custom, the maids would eat something to fill their stomachs before their masters got up, and then serve their masters to wash, change clothes and start the day's activities. I didn't expect Li Ju to get up so early, which was not in line with common sense. Which noble young master without a full-time job didn't sleep until the morning? When Li Ju went out, he saw the maids standing and sitting on the ground. They were plump and thin and beautiful, but he was still disheveled, which scared him so much that he quickly covered his coat. The well-trained maids immediately hid the snacks, then brought water, bowls, silk handkerchiefs, and clothes, and stood in a line. Zyking rolled up her sleeves and said with a smile, "I will serve the master to wash." Li Ju took a few steps back and raised his hands in front of him. "No need. I don't need anyone to serve me." Zyking smiled and said, "Master, you are not used to us. I will call the people around the master. I don't have anyone to serve me, and I don't need anyone to serve me. Put down your clothes and send water to the washroom. I'll do it myself. Where does the mutard live? Find someone to tell him to wait for me in the front yard of the main house. The princess is still asleep. Don't wake her up, but I'm afraid she will be hungry when she gets up. So ask the kitchen to prepare more food with less sugar, less oil, more milk, more eggs, and more meat. This is more nourishing. Also, when the princess wakes up, tell her that I'm going out to practice martial arts and will be back in about an hour. Tell her to do what she needs to do and don't wait until I come back. If she is bored, there are some newly copied books in my study, and there are also 2 cats I raised in the capital. Please help her kill time. The same goes for you. Do what you need to do, but try not to show up in front of me." Zyking heard that Li Ju really cared about the princess and didn't let other women show up in front of him, which showed that he really had no second thoughts. So she smiled and said, "I understand. I'll do it right away." Li Ju nodded, took his clothes from the maid, and went to the bathroom. The people Li Ju brought with him included Yu Yaoniang, the mutard, the inner court lady's son, Chu-san, Shibei, Guiz, Wei Jialiang, and even the housekeeper Wu and the little bell worker, all of whom were left in Yang Mengsen's house. Yaoniang was an official. She usually worked in the study Jingxiuan at the west end outside the second gate inside the main gate, and lived in a wing room in the southwest corner inside the second gate. In order to facilitate Yaoniang's entry and exit, Chen Guiyang specially ordered people to open a small door between Jingxiuan and the wing room. Usually, when Yaoniang wanted to go out to do something, she could get up from the wing room, turn to Jingxiuan, and go out the west door. The stables and carriage stables were right next to the west door. Whether riding a donkey or a horse, or taking a car or a sedan chair, she could leave at any time, which was much closer than going around the hanging flower gate. Li Ju's mansion Fengenhao Mansion was just to the west of Chengyang Princess Mansion, so it was convenient for Yaoniang to go to Fengenhao Mansion to check the situation. The mute adder was originally supposed to be arranged near Li Ju, but Chen Guiyang was surrounded by girls who took care of his daily life. Adder, a strong man, was not suitable to be surrounded by girls, so in the end he was arranged to live in a 3-room wing in the southeast of the upper courtyard, which could also take into account the pond and fields in the northeast. Wei Jialiang lived even further away. Princess Chen Guiyang knew that he was from the Jingdang camp, so she gave him the job of guarding the princess's mansion, and ordered him to guard the house with the original head of the guards in the princess's mansion, so he took turns with the guards in the princess's mansion. The guards who had married had their own residences near the princess's mansion, and those who had not married lived in the 2 areas of the princess's mansion to the east and north. Wei Jialiang was assigned a large courtyard right next to the east gate, and the key to the east gate was simply given to him. The 3rd and the 18th, one lived opposite Yaoniang's office, and the other was chosen by the kitchen to be a master chef, because he was good at making river, sea and mountain delicacies from the south of the Yangtze River. Gizzy followed Yaoniang around like a little tail, so she lived next door to Yaoniang. In addition to Gizzy, there were several prominent female officials in the princess's mansion who lived with Yaoniang. Feng Renghao got married, and his affairs were no longer just his own affairs. The same was true for Chen Guiyang. Her affairs were also integrated with Li Ju's, so the scope of power and responsibility of Li Ju's subordinates expanded. Chen Guiyang sent her people to deal with the additional scope of the circle of coercion, but Chen Guiyang specifically reminded them to do things in Li Ju's way. If Li Ju's ideas were different from those of the princess's mansion, Li Ju's ideas would prevail. Li Ju's side has always acted vigorously, upright and steady, and the princess is willing to cooperate. The 2 sides have worked together when arranging the mansion, and they know each other's personality. Now that they are together, everything will go smoothly. When Li Ju left the main courtyard, the mute was waiting at the door as expected. Li Ju asked, "Are you used to moving here? Is there anything you want to change?" After getting his answer, the 2 of them went out of the second door, first walked around twice outside to warm up, and then went to the open space behind to practice boxing, riding, archery, and swords. After about an hour and a half, they jogged back on the special track in the garden. It was just past the middle of the hour, and it would be lunchtime in a while. Li Ju hurriedly washed, changed into Yanju's clothes, and returned to the main room. He saw Chen Guiyang's face flushed, with a few beads of sweat hanging on her forehead. She was also wearing a brown robe, with her arms and calves tied tightly. She was holding a cup of water and drinking it. There were several maids holding clothes waiting for her to change, and several maids holding books, as if waiting for her to choose her outfit for the day. Li Ju glanced outside, and saw a maid taking Chen Yang's shoes from the corridor. The soles were covered with mud and grass. Li Ju asked, "Did the princess go out too?" Chen Yang smiled and said, "Yes, I always hear you say that people should stretch their muscles. I have never practiced martial arts and cannot keep up with your pace, but I can still do the 5 animal exercises in the yard. My husband helped me choose my outfit for today. I have to go to the palace to celebrate my birthday tonight." Chapter 440 Sweet Life After Marriage 2. Choosing clothes for your wife. This might be a life-threatening question. Instead of being alert, Li Ju went over to observe the jewelry albums of the upper-class women of this era with great interest. The album was brought up by Music Clothing Store. Before music clothing store used albums to help guests choose clothes and jewelry, the ladies would pick clothes from their own warehouses on the spot, or there were several common styles for reference when they went to the store to buy, or the maids would simply send this year's new styles to each household for them to see. Later, Sanjiu learned the method of Li Ju's illustrations for the dictionary and also made albums for her own clothes, published them in newspapers, and sent them to the boudoirs. Later, other places also learned to do so, and the princess's mansion was the same. Of course, Chen Guiyang's jewelry could not be limited to the few albums. The west wing of the upper room of the princess's mansion was filled with new clothes and jewelry made this year and some old styles that Chen Guiyang liked. This was only less than 1/10 of all Chen Guiyang's jewelry and clothes. And this was Chen Guiyang's simplicity. The palace also practiced strict economy, but that was just re-washing clothes, which meant wearing clothes that had been washed once. That is, a piece of clothing was worn 2 or 3 times in total. Yes, the emperor, empress, and concubines wore a set of clothes twice, which was synonymous with economy in the Yang dynasty. When they were not economical, they would change 5 or 6 sets of clothes a day, and a large number of clothes were not worn once, and went directly into the warehouse. Chen Guiyang's simplicity after returning to the capital was most directly reflected in her clothing. She tried her best to make clothes with a certain amount of money, and gave away the extra ones. Anyway, she was used to living in seclusion, and did not attend various social occasions for female relatives. She did not need to pay special attention to her clothes to maintain her dignity. The jewelry delivered to the main hall today had been selected by Ziking, and was particularly suitable for Chen Guiyang's situation today. The new Lai Wat, happy, went home to celebrate the birthday and pay respects to her parents. The eldest princess, honorable and noble, suffered hardship and happiness with her husband. Li Ju leaned close to Chen Guiyang and looked at the pictures. He saw many vivid pictures of clothes on the book, including golden phoenix pearls, kingfisher feathers, filigree beads, 8 treasure gold engraving. Each one was so magnificent that it dazzled the eyes. Chen Guiyang introduced them to him one by one, and when he pointed to the 37-piece set of kingfisher feathers and colorful gems head ornaments, he explained that our family has long stopped using real kingfisher feathers. Now we use blue or silk to imitate them to avoid damaging the harmony of nature. Li Ju looked around and finally asked, which one is the lightest? I estimate that we will not be able to return for 3 or 5 hours after entering the palace. The lighter one will be more comfortable for the princess. Ziking pointed to the one with filigree beads and said, this one is light and was made in Jiangnan. It uses a light gold thread base and the patterns are all filigree. It is rich, light, and romantic. Chen Guiyang nodded. That's it. After choosing the jewelry, Ziking picked out a few sets of clothes to match. In the end, she chose the festive red-bottomed gold-woven flowered gauze long-sleeved robe, which was woven with gold thread, to create delicate patterns such as phoenixes and lotus flowers. This set of clothes was also made in Jingling. Even though it used the aesthetics of Chang'an, the overall style still carried the freshness and elegance of Jiangnan. It looked light but not superficial. A maid immediately left to prepare clothes with the others, and Ziking brought people to choose clothes for Li Ju, but Li Ju's dresses were all regulated dresses, so there was little room for maneuver. What could be done with a style that had already been determined in length and width? In other words, there could be some fancy accessories. Li Ju was impatient with all this, so he said, they all look the same to me. There is no difference. Please make the decision, princess. Chen Guiyang took the book with a smile, pointed to a set of jade belts with a phoenix pattern engraved on it, and said, husband, my maiden name is Lekang. Li Ju was stunned for a moment, and suddenly realized what Chen Guiyang meant, and said, then, in private, can I call you Kangja? Chen Guiyang's unpainted face flushed. Okay. Only my father, mother, and husband have called me that. Li Ju smiled foolishly. I also have a nickname, called Gao Zazi. You are younger than me, so you can call me Gao Jian. The maids around the mall covered their mouths and giggled. Chen Guiyang gave them a glare, but finally called them brother in a low voice. After choosing the clothes, Chen Guiyang changed into Yanju clothes. The couple chatted while eating lunch, and then went to the study to handle daily affairs. Although Li Ju was in Chang'an, he was still concerned about the technical station. He copied all the books and studied all the drawings. For example, the steam engine had been debugged and was now waiting for the 5th day of August. After the Wanshao festival, it would be a good time to demonstrate it in public when the capital was the busiest. Li Ju did not have too many official duties or chores to deal with in the capital, so he could concentrate on studying. The princess was even busier. There were many trivial matters to deal with in the princess's mansion, especially the daily activities of the housewife such as interpersonal relationships, which were numerous. Now people in the capital who were familiar with Chen Guiyang understood that she was newly married and did not come to disturb her, but those handkerchief friends did not come to attend the wedding and eat the wedding wine, so they could no longer understand anything. They had to arrange to meet Chen Guiyang as soon as possible, at least to see what the prince consort looked like and whether she was happy after marriage. So Yanqing, Zheng Zian and other girls asked her to burn incense and have banquets together. There were also interpersonal exchanges of gifts and festival gifts, financial receipts and expenditures, and preparations for the southward trip. Even if the princess's female officials made preliminary arrangements according to the old rules, the final decision still had to be made by Chen Guiyang herself, and those preliminary arrangements could not really reduce Chen Guiyang's burden. After a while, there was almost no shortage of people looking for Chen Guiyang. Chen Guiyang was afraid of disturbing Li Ju, so she ordered people to clean up the room at the other end of the east wing as her place of management, and also told people not to come in from the main corridor, but to go through the small door on the south side, so as not to disturb Li Ju when passing by the study. However, this seemed to reduce the time Chen Guiyang and Li Ju spent together. When she was in Jinling, she could go to the school with Li Ju, but now they could not even read books together. Chen Guiyang was determined to share some of the daily chores. She thought that the capital was full of things, and she and Li Ju were still at the center of the storm. If one of them didn't handle it well, it might cause trouble. She didn't dare to share the responsibility rashly, so she made up her mind to share these miscellaneous and unprogressive things when she returned to Jinling. Jinling was Li Ju's home ground, and the things were less complicated. There was no need to do everything by herself like now. Li Ju copied the books according to the schedule, read a few letters from Jinling to know the situation at home, and it was still early, so he simply went to Chen Guiyang's side while hanging out with his wife to kill time, and also listen to the daily life of housewives of this era. As soon as he heard it, Li Ju understood that most of the people who came to his wife were actually trivial matters, but because they were newly married, Chen Guiyang was afraid of omissions, so he took it over and did it himself. Chen Guiyang was working and felt guilty that he could not accompany Li Ju. Li Ju could not listen to this, so he moved a high stool to sit behind Chen Guiyang and massage his wife's shoulders and neck. Not only did he massage, but he also asked Chen Guiyang questions to help him make decisions. Chen Guiyang said, "Brother, these are just small matters. I don't want to trouble you." Li Ju replied, "Kenji's affairs are not small matters. You just do it. I will listen and see if I can think of a way to help you solve some problems." Chapter 441 Sweet Life After Marriage 3. Chen Guiyang had been in Jinling for 3 years, and after returning, he had changed many methods according to Jinling's habits. Accounting, bookkeeping, and procedures. The whole set of things is actually very efficient. Now there are many trivial matters, which is actually caused by the special period. Li Ju doesn't even understand the social interactions in the capital, let alone think of a solution. Chen Guiyang gave orders one by one, and he was in better spirits. He said, "Brother, it's best for me to accompany you. I don't know how many people will be envious if I tell others about it. Men in the world are lucky not to find trouble, and they can accompany their wives to see these." After saying that, the last few things were done, and the letters that needed to be replied were already input there, and they could be copied down when they had time. Ziking estimated that the time was about right, and carefully helped Chen Guiyang change clothes. Li Ju had rough hands and feet, and he was not very good at delicate work such as combing a bun and wearing a crown. His clothes could only be put on, but they were far from being well dressed. In the past, Li Ju had attended formal occasions casually, or Huangzian and servants lent him to use. The few times he met the emperor in the capital, the palace sent people to take care of these. After marriage, Li Ju had no close servants around him. He was hesitating whether to learn seriously, but Chen Guiyang had already changed into a lining robe, tied the 7 golden pieces and the big belt, tied up his hair, put on a golden hairnet, and was waiting to put on a big sleeved shirt and a shawl, and then put on a crown and a hairpin before going out. When Chen Guiyang saw that he was still scratching his head and the little girls standing outside could only stare blankly, she knew what was going on, so she gently asked the little girls to put down their tools and said, "Let me do it. You don't let other girls get close to you, and you can't do these delicate things yourself, so I have to do it." Li Ju breathed a long sigh of relief and opened his hands to Chen Guiyang with a little grievance on his face. "Wife, it's not that I'm lazy, it's that this thing really doesn't listen to me. Sit down and don't move, I'll do it." Chen Guiyang rolled up her sleeves, dipped a small comb in a little finely prepared tree sap water specially used for combing hair, and gently combed it on Li Ju's head. Li Ju's frizzy hair looked like a hedgehog with frizzy hair, which was quite cute. It's a pity that you can't be so casual when attending formal occasions. In Dayang, both men and women need to use auxiliary tools such as hair oil and sawdust water to make their hair less frizzy and keep the shape. The hair oils used by noble ladies are mainly refined and scented floral oils, compounded with seasonal floral and herbal fragrances. For example, now in July and August, Chen Guiyang's hair oil is a rose jasmine base with precious medicinal materials and spices soaked in oil. The men of noble families who like to be coquettish also use floral hair oils, while those who don't like to be coquettish use tea oil, sawdust water, etc. Li Ju's is made from elm bark juice mixed with sandalwood, agarwood, bamboo green, cypress, ambergris and other spices. Of course, the poor families who are extremely poor and can't get elm bark use their own natural sebum. Chen Guiyang likes the calm and quiet smell of the trees that Li Ju prefers and even wants to replace his greasy hair oil with the same one. Li Ju felt numb from Chen Guiyang's scraping and rubbing of his scalp. "I used to comb my mother's hair in the same way. Speaking of which, I have to thank your microscope. I use the microscope to look at everything, and we finally know where lice and fleas come from. In the palace, and among the people, large-scale disinfection has been carried out, and combing hair has really become a careful combing of the hair. Don't you know that we used to comb hair to catch fleas? After the hair is combed, it can be smoothed with tree sap or hair oil, so it won't be frizzy. Then, while the tree sap is not dry, it can be fixed in the shape of the bun. Brother, you are wearing a crown today, so just comb a simple bun. Brother, your hair is very short. After the bun is combed, you must wear a scarf first to fix and protect the scalp, otherwise it will be left with marks after a day. Okay, it's actually very simple. Brother, be patient." Chen Guiyang also trimmed Li Ju's messy eyebrows. Li Ju's eyebrows are very thick, just as rough as his own personality. Li Ju's heart was beating fast. Chen Guiyang's brother with a little teasing and coquettishness was simply amazing. I won't learn anymore, my wife. I'll rely on you in the future. Anyway, it's unlikely that he will separate from Chen Guiyang, so why learn? Wouldn't it be better to let Chen Guiyang do it? Then I won't do it, unless you also comb my hair. My requirements are not high. I can't count on the Japanese bun, the high bun, and the peony bun, but the vertebral bun and the cloud bun should be fine, right? What is that? I haven't heard of it. You teach me. I'm willing to learn. Li Ju was willing to learn how to draw eyebrows from Zhang Chang. He really couldn't draw eyebrows, so why not change to combing hair? Ziking watched them combing their hair and getting close to each other again. She coughed and reminded them that it was getting late and the prince consort hadn't changed his clothes yet. Chen Guiyang and Li Ju separated embarrassedly. Ziking left with the maids, leaving only Chen Guiyang to change Li Ju's clothes. The clothes are actually no different from everyday wear. The most important thing is to align the seams. The back seam is facing the middle of the back, which means that a person should be upright and impartial. The front seam is in the middle of the chest, which means that one's mind is upright and impartial. This is the requirement of being a gentleman. You have to put on clothes patiently one by one. Brother, you put 2 or 3 pieces on at a time. How can you wear them smoothly? The laces don't have to be too tight, or they will be miselegant. We are going to a banquet, not going out to practice martial arts. so they don't have to be so fitted. It doesn't matter if they get in the way, because we don't have much chance to move. It's just that brother has always disliked being served by others. In the past, even my father followed his temper, but tonight is a very formal occasion. I'm afraid it's not easy to make an exception. Brother, please be patient. But my father would definitely not want us to starve, so we should be able to have a good meal today, but I don't know about the others. I heard that when people from far away come to the palace for the banquet, the dishes will be a little cold when they are handed over, and the sacrificial meat is particularly unpalatable, so everyone has to fill their stomachs in advance. We don't need to, we just need to eat happily. Okay, there is still a big belt left. You can tie it when you go out later. That thing drags on the floor. How inconvenient is it to put it on now? I still have a big sleeve shirt to put on. You come. Li Ju inserted the jade tablet into his waist and clumsily put on the big sleeve shirt for Yu Yaoniang. He may not have learned how to wear a woman's gorgeous hair crown, and he doesn't know how to put on the shawl, but a coat is not a big problem. Pepperroom Palace. Are you serious? You didn't lie to me? The prince consort didn't let any of you get close to him, not even to serve tea or water? The prince consort's people live at the second gate. Kanja combed the prince consort's hair herself, and the prince consort also massaged Kanja's shoulders personally. The queen was very worried that her daughter would be wronged, and even more worried that she had misjudged Li Ju. As soon as the people from the princess's mansion entered the palace, Yu Yaoniang asked for their well-being, and was sent by the queen to talk to Sanjiu and the others, while the queen herself used an excuse to summon Ziking and the wet nurse for a detailed interrogation. The result was beyond her expectations, or should be said to be far beyond her expectations. She thought that it would be good enough for Prince Consort Li to control himself from taking concubines beyond the princess, but she didn't expect that Prince Consort could take the initiative to alienate the maids who served him closely. Maids in this era are not considered human beings, but tools of Xiao. The reason why Xiao Yang Shushan made a big mistake before was because Shanjia was a good citizen, not a maid, and Shanjia herself didn't want to. Prince Consort Li's estrangement from them is a sign of both self-discipline and respect for others, which is quite remarkable. There is no man who is not fond of women, the only difference is whether he can control himself or not. 10 years ago, the emperor could not control himself either, and would favor the ones he liked. However, in the past 10 years, the emperor has distanced himself from women in order to save his life. Prince Consort Li can do this despite his hot-bloodedness, so he either really respects Yu Yaoniang, or he has big ambitions. The queen thinks it should be the former. After pondering for a moment, the queen thinks there is another possibility, and she cannot rule out the extremely special situation that Prince Consort is not capable. Then, how did they get along last night? Did they consummate their marriage? Chapter 442 Sweet Life After Marriage 4. Last night, all those who worked the night shift were driven away by the consort and the princess. Besides, how could an unmarried girl like her know so much? Ziking's face was burning like blood, and she hesitated for a long time, but couldn't come up with a clear answer. Sun, who had given birth before, knew little more. She asked Ziking to step aside and said vaguely, I think it's pretty good. Your Highness and the Prince Consort went to bed after half past the hour of zoo last night. There was noise in the room until late at night. The Prince Consort had to wash the hot water, towel, and soap again, and it was almost half past the hour of chow. The Prince Consort got up early and went to the backyard to practice boxing and swordsmanship early in the morning. Before leaving, he specifically told her not to disturb the princess. The princess got up late this morning, which was rare. She woke up at noon, and she was hungry. When the old servant helped the princess change her clothes, she looked carefully. Oh, wow, the young couple has a good relationship. After hearing this, the queen was basically relieved. When she met her beloved daughter again, she was in a good mood. Yu Yaoniang's demeanor, pace, and expression all revealed that her masters knew what life was very happy. At least the queen had never seen her daughter blooming like a peony before. When she married Scholar Yang last time, she was a new wife, but Yu Yaoniang was no different from usual, still the dignified and calm princess. But now Chen Guiyang, with her affectionate and charming face, is a real new bride. The queen invited Chen Guiyang to sit beside her, held Chen Guiyang's hand, and looked at it again carefully. Suddenly, she thought of the fact that she would follow Li Ju to Jinling after the Wanshao festival. Her heart was filled with infinite sorrow, but she was also a million times relieved, seeing that you didn't marry the wrong person this time. I'm also satisfied. It's a pity that I can't hold a grand wedding for you. When has a princess ever felt so wronged when getting married? Mother, a grand wedding is extravagant and wasteful, and it's not pleasing. Even if those people congratulate you on the surface, they don't know what they think in their hearts. My husband and I don't need to use this to gain face. But we agreed that on the way to Jinling, every time we stop at a place, we will invite the local people, civilians, and common people to have a buffet together. It will take 2 or 3 months to go, and we can have it dozens of times. There will always be thousands or tens of thousands of people eating at our wedding banquet. Isn't that much better than looking at the sour faces of the old sour people in Beijing? We won't spend much money, and we will receive sincere blessings. We will also do good deeds and pray for daddy and madam. The queen's eyes reddened again when she heard this, and she was even more reluctant to let go. Chen Guiyang's understanding and caring were among the most virtuous daughters and daughters-in-law in the capital. Chen Guiyang's marriage almost broke her heart, and later when she went to Jinling, she almost cried for her by the heels. This time, it was her 3rd marriage. After all, the queen was a mother. No matter how she was a mother of the country, no matter how she was not jealous, and no matter how she raised other concubines' children as her own children, Chen Guiyang, the apple of her eye, was different. Don't worry, mother. My husband and I have discussed this. After he shows everyone what kind of train is in a few days, we can build trams all over the country. Then we can come back once a year, celebrate mother's birthday on New Year's Day, and return to Nanjing after the queen's birthday. You are kidding me again. Half a year has passed since you came back and forth. The prince consort still has his career. How can he spend half a year on the road? The mother and daughter exchanged a few words. Some of the ladies who came to the palace to celebrate the birthday and were familiar with the queen came to see the queen and pay their respects. Although the queen was reluctant, she had to get up and change her clothes to invite the ladies in. Chen Guiyang had to put away her daughter's coquettishness and transformed into a dignified top lady, accompanying her mother and the other ladies to greet each other appropriately. The situation on Chen Guiyang's side was not bad. No matter what, in front of the queen, the ladies could not embarrass Chen Guiyang. Moreover, there are several sisters and friends of Chen Guiyang, such as the princess, Sanjiu, and Miss Luo. Chen Guiyang just can't be as free as when she is with her mother in private. Li Ju is much more painful. He looks down on the indulgence of 80% of the young masters in Beijing, and others look down on his rustic. He also offended 80% of the scholars in Beijing, and was blocked at the door, and scolded for a month. He also married the wife of the scholar Yu Yaoniang, although the Yang family privately said that it was because the princess could not have children that they divorced and released her to the people, which was considered a divorce. Li Ju could only be regarded as picking up his family's divorced wife, but in fact everyone knew that the Yang family suffered the most in the whole thing. The honor and clarity of face, the title and the emperor's heart were all lost. You can't write 2 Yangs with one stroke. Big Yang, Little Yang, Southern Yang, and Northern Yang, aren't they all the top academic tycoons in Dayang? The Yang family? Li Ju offended the entire reading system of this dynasty, from top to bottom. Except for the increasingly declining Jiang Nanyu, even the most open-minded families such as Dayang and Jiang Nanlin had to remain neutral because of the face of Yang Teifu. Before Li Ju arrived at the Lind Hall, the young scholar Yang, who followed his father into the palace, was surrounded by his friends who were also playboys in the capital to attack Li Ju. Before the banquet officially started, those who entered the palace but did not go to see His Majesty the Emperor gathered in small groups in the Kilin Hall. Listening to his friends disparaging Li Ju one after another, the young scholar Yang, who felt that he had suffered a great humiliation last night, was very pleased. But soon, when Li Ju appeared, those playboys who had just gathered together to say that Li Ju was vulgar and uninterested, all surrounded Li Ju to ask about his well-being. It is true that Li Ju is incompatible with them, but it is easy to make money by following Li Ju. Li Ju himself doesn't like to make money, but he doesn't stop others from making money. Look at the second prince, who is the smartest. He has changed from the poorest prince to the richest prince, and it's all thanks to the dividends from his various industries in Kingshan. Although they are not poor, who would refuse legal money? Not to mention the honors and favors bestowed on Li Ju by His Majesty the Emperor these days, which are simply enviable. He is summoned alone almost once every 3 days. Li Ju was appointed as a natural science teacher for the little princess and the little prince. Li Ju was allowed to enter and leave the pepper room freely. A Jiuan offended Li Ju, and as a result, even his patron, Yu Yaoniang, fell, and all the places of entertainment in the capital were also affected. Li Ju's sister Li Zia was granted marriage as the third prince's principal wife. Li Zia was 8 years older than the third prince. Li Ju was awarded another title of Marquis on the premise that he already had one. The double Marquis treatment directly raised him to the superclass duke, from a commoner to a superclass duke in 10 years. Do you think this is the era when a general who conquered half of the country was directly awarded a Marquis? How difficult it is to get a title in peacetime. Escort Li Ju's technical station that offended the world. Use Li Ju's school system as a school for advanced studies in the Imperial Medical Bureau and the Ministry of Works. Li Ju's hand has reached the channel of class mobility from clerks, the Ministry of Works, the Imperial Medical Bureau, and civilians to clerks. He looks honest and simple, but how honest is his behavior and gains? If you don't cling to the thighs now, when will you? So everyone wants to get in touch with Li Ju as soon as possible, even if it is to make more profits. Yu Yaoniang, a scholar, was stunned by his friends who turned their backs on him. Is this what you call a common hatred of the enemy? Li Ju was polite and reserved in his interactions with this group of unfamiliar but familiar young people. Although he disliked the class that sucked blood from the people, he could not condemn a single person with one stick. However, Li Ju's way of chatting could easily kill people. No one dared to talk about official business in this occasion, so the range of topics to choose from was very small. Talk about the new trends, new fashions, and new gossip in the capital? Li Ju didn't know anything about it, and the biggest news in the capital now was Cheng Guiyang's marriage, the third prince's marriage, and the uprooting of Marquis Yuming. These 3 things were all related to Li Ju, and Li Ju certainly couldn't gossip about himself. If one talked about the beauties, guests, famous actors and prostitutes in the capital, Li Ju's eyes were visibly filled with contempt. When I was in Kingshan, I advocated closing down brothels, so I don't know much about these. Henpecked? Yes, I am. Madam is so good and willing to devote herself to me, so naturally I want Madam to live a peaceful and happy life. You call this henpecked, so then I'm henpecked. Cherish flowers? Not really. How can you cherish flowers if you haven't even seen them? On the contrary, I advise you that family members are more important. Your respected madam is wholeheartedly for you and to preserve the family. What else do women outside want except money? Besides, people may not be willing. Everyone looked at Li Ju, who was calm and composed, as if they saw the white lotus slowly blooming in the pond. There was really nothing to talk about that day. Chapter 443 Sweet Life After Marriage 5. When the atmosphere was awkward, the third prince came to find someone, breaking the awkwardness. Brother-in-law? Why is brother-in-law still here? I've been looking for you for a long time. Come on, brother-in-law is one of ours. Let's talk inside. The third prince pulled Li Ju out of the crowd with a smile. When the queen heard that the new son-in-law had arrived, she was eager to meet you. My sister also said something about the rules for outsiders to enter the harem, etc. Our mothers didn't listen to it and said that my sister was hiding it from them. Look, the queen mother sent me to find you to see the world. Li Ju said goodbye to his peers and followed the third prince. As soon as he walked out of the door, Li Ju asked, does the empress really want to see me? How is that possible? The empress is busy reminiscing about the past with her family members in the palace, so how could she think of seeing you? The queen mother would like to, but the central palace is full of ladies of honor, and it is not convenient to ask you to go. People are curious about you, but they are not necessarily in a hurry to go there right now. I saw that you two are not getting along well, and I'm exhausted, so I came to rescue you. Okay, then I Thank the third prince for rescuing you. Okay, when you see Sister Sanjiu later, please follow my lead and act accordingly. And when you have nothing to do, say more good things about me and praise me. The third prince was obviously well prepared. He pulled Li Ju directly to the quiet side room next to the side hall and took the opportunity to ask for some favors. But my brother-in-law is really something. What's the point of talking to them? They always talk about wine, sex, money, and power. I used to be patient enough to talk to them, but now, except for the Luo family, the Yang family, the eldest Yang family, and a few brothers from the Shen family, I don't hang out with others. There's no point at all. It's better to farm with my brother-in-law. At least if I plant some seeds today, I will surely have a harvest in 3 to 5 months. What you said is true, but I have figured it out now. There is no need to avoid it like this. They talk and I listen. If I can make 1 or 2 friends, it would not be bad. Master Yang has a disciple who didn't come today. His surname is Liu. I thought he was just a dissolute playboy, but I didn't expect that he could handle all kinds of relationships with people from all walks of life. He must be a hero and generous person. If there are other people like him, wouldn't it be nice to get to know 1 or 2? Li Ju was talking about the gossiper who helped settle the Dong Niang incident. Although Baodating was also a drunkard and incompatible with Li Ju, since the two of them had a friendship, they had contacts. Li Ju saw many shining points in him, and the friendship between the two, or the relationship between Li Ju and some of the second generation children in the capital who were not so indulgent, developed along this opportunity. However, Baodating's wide range of friends are mostly middle class and lower middle class people, while those who appeared in the killing hall now are the core members of the top of the empire, and their arrogance and pride far exceed Baodating. Li Ju does not hate arrogance or high-handed attitudes. It is also right for talented people to be arrogant. It is the so-called arrogance. Therefore, Li Ju maintained enough respect for Yang Mengson and others, and always respected Zheng Shidao who protected him, but let his children suppress him. But Li Ju hated those blind and arrogant people who did not know how much they weighed and used the glory that their ancestors sacrificed for as their own capital to show off. Since he was a child, his parents had warned him and his brothers to prevent them from developing such personalities. The people Li Ju met, such as Wu Yu, the Grand Secretary, the former Yu Minghao, and the young scholar Yang, could all be used as negative examples if his father knew about them in modern society. It's not like he didn't see the young scholar Yang's complaints and evasion just now. Even so, he didn't dare to confront Li Ju in person, and Li Ju would look down on him even more. The third prince grabbed 2 handfuls of nuts from the eunuch next to him and peeled them to pass the time. He used a brand new butterfly-shaped silk bag to wrap the kernels, not knowing where to take them. When he heard Li Ju mention the person who helped him with the matter in Tingxiang Lao, he said, speaking of the one from the Liu family, is it the young master of the Liu family? The one who helped you with the matter with Sanjiu's sister? I remembered something, so you should be careful. Li Ju frowned. Just say it, don't hide it. We are friends and brothers-in-law to each other. Why are you still hesitating? About the matter in Tingxiang Lao, don't you have any doubts, brother-in-law? A brothel madam dares to have ideas about you? She is not so bold. Besides, if you take such a big risk, you must make a lot of money, right? Even if her daughter becomes your concubine, what can you give her? You are so stingy. The third prince peeled nuts with a crackling sound and soon peeled a small pile of various shells. The eunuch beside him wanted to help, but was blocked by the third prince. The eunuch quickly brought a bunch of different fruits and placed them on the table. Li Ju saw that there were some better varieties such as ginkgo nuts, chestnut kernels, 4-color melon seeds, and peanuts, so he also came to wash his hands with water and then peeled the ginkgo nuts and white melon seeds. After peeling, he put the kernels in a small dish and left them alone. While peeling, he thought about the many imported dried fruits in the warehouse, which he should take out and eat someday, and explained casually, no matter what the plan is, just chop off her hand, and it will be fine. She and the people behind her can't use all kinds of martial arts. Brother-in-law should be careful. I heard from your majesty that Marquis Yuming is doing this to participate in the struggle for the throne and to gain the credit of following the dragon. although your majesty dealt with him. But, think about it, he is a stepson of a relative by marriage. How could he make such a bold decision if no one instigated him? Your majesty is trying to shock the tiger by making a noise on the mountain. Will the tiger definitely be shocked? Now because of my fiancé, you are half on my boat, and I'm worried that you and my sister will encounter more troubles. It's okay. Your sister and I have lived in Jinling for a few years, far away from the ups and downs of Chang'an. Everything should be over when we come back. Besides, with his majesty's wisdom, he will never let you princes do whatever you want. As long as you behave properly, there is nothing to be afraid of. Although Li Ju took note of the third prince's suggestion, considering that he and Chen Guiyang would spend a long time in Jinling, he was sure that no matter who was stirring up trouble in the capital, their hands would not be able to reach that far. And no matter what the prince wanted to do, for the couple, it would only be to win them over to a side, and the worst that could be done was to exclude them from the center of power, to prevent them from supporting his opponents. There would be no worse results. The emperor and empress were still watching. Who would dare to touch their beloved daughters? Li Ju understood this, but was worried about his friend Sanjiu and the third prince. On the contrary, you should never let power shake your determination. Everyone can see your character. Even if you take a step back, you are still a wise king. Isn't this your ambition? Before making any decision, please think about Sanjiu, think about the people, and think about how much we have worked together in Chengyang Prefecture to help the people increase their harvests. Only then will life be meaningful. Don't worry, brother-in-law, I remember this. The two brothers had been cracking fruits in the small room for a long time. Finally, the time came, and the eunuchs came to serve them to the table. Li Ju grabbed a plate of dried fruit kernels, and found that there were only men at the table here, and the women were not together at all. He asked the eunuchs, and learned that the longevity gifts were sent to the outer court and the harem. The one to the harem was a small gathering for the family, and only then could the couple attend together. Now, the ministers are ministers and the king is king. It is a formal court-level banquet for the king and his ministers. There is only one female family member, the queen, in the whole audience. Li Ju grabbed the third prince and asked, "Can I still go and see the princess?" The third prince and the eunuchs around him all laughed. "No, the princess is in the pepper room. It takes at least 3/4 of an hour to go back and forth. Even if we plead, we can't catch up. Why is the prince consort so concerned about the princess that he won't wait even a moment?" Li Ju shook the plate and said, "I peeled it for the princess. She likes ginkgo nuts. But I dare not let her eat too much because they are too nutritious. So I peeled some of her second favorite white melon seeds and peanuts that nourish the blood." The third prince was stunned for a moment and smiled. "This is not difficult. Tangi, Tangxi, you two take this plate of nuts from the prince consort to the pepper room. Be careful not to let it out of your sight, and don't let anyone touch it." The two young eunuchs nodded and took the fruit plate from Li Ju. The third prince coughed and handed them the gauze purse he had just used. He lowered his voice and ordered, "This is for Miss Li. It's my Princess Li, not anyone else." Chapter 444 Sweet Life After Marriage 6. Li Ju looked at the third prince meaningfully, and the third prince was calm. It's not shameful for a man to coax his wife. Of course, how could it be shameful? A man's face comes from his achievements, and coaxing his wife makes him look even better. Li Ju was led by the eunuch to sit on the side close to the dragon throne. Above him were only a few old clan members, royal relatives, uncles, and princes. The clan members were the closest, and the foreign ministers were the outermost. Li Ju was on the dividing line between the two. What was more uncomfortable was that except for a few imperial aunts, sons-in-law and descendants, everyone else around Li Ju was an important minister of the emperor at the level of Wu Yu. Especially old Yang and old Wu, two white-haired old men over 70 years old, looked at Li Ju, turned their faces away at the same time, and pretended not to see it. Li Ju didn't have any idea of socializing. He was naturally opposed to these people. After marrying Chen Guiyang, his status as a foreign relative was even more incompatible with them. The only person who nodded to him was Yang Mengson, and they were limited to such a lukewarm communication, without saying a word. However, the time left for everyone to communicate was not long, and there was no chance to speak loudly. After everyone was seated, the emperor and empress ascended the throne from the inner hall, and the Wanshao festival officially began. This was the first time that Li Ju had close contact with the top banquets in the feudal era. Under the separate meals, the eunuchs and palace servants served them a variety of dishes to each table. The dough sculptures for display and appreciation were placed in the middle for everyone to enjoy. The big ones were comparable to real people, and the small ones were placed on the tables and tables, with different heights, and the beautiful mountains and rivers could be seen everywhere. The life-sized dough figurines were all beautiful, some were flying, some were goddesses, some were celestial maidens scattering flowers, and some were magus celebrating birthdays. The musicians and dancers of the Yufu were also among them. For a while, the dough figurines and real people complemented each other, and it was difficult to distinguish them. The food served at the banquet was also rare delicacies, such as camel hoofs, bear paws, deer lips, leopard fetuses, yogurt, steamed lambs, and sweet spring water. They were served and taken away one after another. The prominent people brought written birthday speeches to wish His Majesty the Emperor a happy birthday. Some rare birthday gifts were also presented at this time. Li Ju saw giraffes and zebras sent as auspicious beasts, unicorns, fire-eating birds, cassowaries sent as phoenixes, meteorites from the sky, and huge whale bones. It was hard for them to pick the whale meat so clean. Even in modern times, this thing is a very difficult specimen to make. The people who presented the rare treasures boasted, and Li Ju watched coldly, but did not expose them on the spot. His Majesty the Emperor obviously did not believe it, and there was no need for him to spoil the fun on this occasion. However, facing the rare treasures that showed the country's strength, Li Ju really had no appetite for food. He even regretted not having eaten some snacks before coming. Thinking of this, what Chen Guiyang said when he combed his hair this afternoon became a flag flying. One after another, the ornate congratulatory speeches gradually pushed the atmosphere to a climax, especially the extra invitation of 99 centenarians from the capital and nearby areas who were also brought to the Kiln Hall to participate in the celebration, which made people marvel. It is rare for a person to live to 70 years old, but here are 100-year-olds. The oldest one is 108 years old and still energetic. This is undoubtedly very much to the Emperor's taste. Isn't it for the sake of longevity that he has been cherishing his blessings and keeping fit over the years? The person who planned to bring the old man and the old woman here was the second prince. His Majesty the Emperor rewarded the old people with food, drinks, and entertainment, and praised the second prince for his ability to do things. However, he still asked an additional question. You are tired from traveling by boat and car. Although you are from the suburbs, you have to go through a lot. Stay here tonight. I will send everyone home comfortably tomorrow. The second prince was so happy that his eyebrows danced. Don't worry, father. How can your son torture the elderly? They were all picked up by trams, which are fast and stable. When they arrived at the palace gate, they were changed to my son's sedan chair. When they arrived at the front hall, they were carried by eunuchs. I plan to send the old people home in the same way, and I will make sure that they will not be tired at all. Speaking of this, I also want to thank Feng Ranghao for inventing the tram, which has been a great help. The group of old people should have been told in advance, and they all echoed and praised. His Majesty the Emperor was very happy and rewarded Li Ju. Li Ju was singled out for the first time tonight and had to stand up to express his gratitude. However, he did not want to participate in the second prince's arrangement to please His Majesty the Emperor. This was clearly a way to drag him down. So after thanking him, Li Ju showed his straightforward nature and said very frankly, I feel ashamed to receive this reward, but since it was given by, I should not refuse it. From the beginning to the end, this is the sincere filial piety of the second prince. The rail car is there, and anyone can use it, but the second prince thought of such a special gift, so I think it should be considered the second prince's full credit. His Majesty the Emperor laughed and waved his hand for him to sit back down. The second prince's face did not show any embarrassment or anger, as if Li Ju had not rejected his face at all. Instead, the princess's husband who was sitting next to Li Ju said in a sarcastic tone, Your Majesty really loves Chen Guiyang's husband, but I don't know what kind of birthday gift this husband has prepared to repay your Majesty's kindness. Don't come empty-handed. He spoke softly, but everyone nearby heard it, so everyone looked at Li Ju intentionally or unintentionally, expecting how he would answer. Unexpectedly, Li Ju didn't respond at all. He didn't have too many gifts that he could take out casually as national treasures, but those gifts he would take out, even if they were not for his father-in-law's birthday, and they were not birthday gifts. His Majesty the Emperor is not stupid, and there is a small banquet for his family in the back. If the husband and daughter-in-law have something to say, they will talk about it at the family banquet. Why would they mention family matters at the state banquet? His Majesty the Emperor ignored this, but instead asked Li Ju to continue eating and drinking. He also saw that Li Ju didn't eat much of the dishes and wine, guessing that he was not used to such traditional dishes, so he ordered Feng Nian to tell the small kitchen to make 2 new dishes and send them to Li Ju quietly. Feng Nian left quietly. He was one of the chief stewards of the Kiln Hall today. There was nothing he didn't intervene in. He knew the arrangements of every link and every person the best. Letting him do it would never make mistakes. But soon the little eunuch he arranged to pass the message came back and pulled him to whisper. Feng Nian was surprised at first, then happy. He smiled and asked him to go down and continue to pass the message. He shook his white rhino dust and came back to report to His Majesty the Emperor. The small kitchen said that it was arranged a long time ago. Her Royal Highness the Princess privately asked them to make it. As soon as he finished speaking, the round of dishes came. The ones sent to other places were all carved Nanshan Bulaosang shortbread, but Li Ju had 3 more almond teas, steamed milk, and chicken soup. Feng Nian also saw it, and continued, although Her Royal Highness the Princess and the Prince Consort have only been together for 1 day, they seem like an old couple who met in the previous life. I heard that, when the Prince Consort was waiting for an audience with the Emperor, he peeled a sea of ginkgo nuts and peanuts for Her Royal Highness the Princess and eagerly gave them to Her Royal Highness the Princess to eat. In the afternoon, Her Royal Highness the Princess took the food delivery table and said that the Prince Consort would not like to eat these, but if she was frugal, she was afraid that others would make random guesses, so she asked the Empress to arrange 3 small bowls for the Prince Consort. The Empress at the side also heard it and said, "It is true. Kanja asked me to arrange it." His Majesty the Emperor was even happier. Kanja has had a rough 2 years, and finally he has a good home. This is the best gift today. They are living a good life, and I have nothing to say. Zitting, you wanted to keep Kanja for 1 night today, don't you want to? The queen looked at Li Ju, who was talking to the eunuch serving dishes, probably asking about Yu Yaoniang's extra dishes. She also smiled and said, no, what should I leave? Chapter 445 Sweet Life After Marriage 7. Li Ju was completely unaware of the little tricks between His Majesty the Emperor and the Empress. He was asking the eunuch about Chen Yang secretly sending him 3 more dishes. The eunuch explained the whole story with some envy and said, don't worry, Your Majesty and the Empress know about this matter and it's not beyond the rules. Li Ju was relieved and enjoyed a sip of almond tea. It was indeed smooth and fragrant, much more to his taste than the greasy and sweet main dishes. The Prince Consort next to him said sourly, it's true that a favored wife is different. She can order dishes at a banquet in the palace. Li Ju smiled and replied, the favored girl is proud, and she doesn't look down on you who are so sour. After saying that, he didn't give the Prince Consort, who was so angry that he jumped up and down, a chance to fight back, and turned his head to pretend to be seriously enjoying the performance in the middle. On the other side, in the front hall of Miran Palace, Chen Yang was blushing among the female relatives and being teased by his aunt-in-law, sister and bestie. Fortunately, there was Sanjiu to share the firepower with her, otherwise all the envy and jealousy today would be directed at her alone. The eldest princess's consort is really extraordinary. With such a thoughtfulness, many girls have been looking forward to it, but can't get it. Do we lack this bite of food? What we lack is the thought of our husbands when they are away. Princess, please teach us how to get along with the consort on weekdays. We also want to try it, and we also want our husbands to remember to bring us something delicious and fun when they are away. It doesn't matter whether it is expensive or not. What matters is whether it is thoughtful or not. Yes, my husband. I have given him all kinds of hints, Hey, he went on a long journey and brought me a gift. Guess what it is? It's a concubine. He also said that he couldn't bear me to give birth, so he asked that girl to give birth for me. I was so angry that I took that girl and married her to a boy that day. Do you think this man is stupid? What's that? At least you can get the person to be married off. Look at other families and you'll know your family is relatively good. Guess why Mrs. N from the Chen family didn't come today? She used to be the most active one to go to the palace. If you didn't ask us, we wouldn't have remembered it. Now that you ask, I guess this. Her master beat her again. Yes, I found out when I went to see her the other day. This year's Wan Shao festival is held in such a grand manner. Every household has started to cut new clothes and make jewelry early. Mrs. N also wanted to make 2 dresses, but she didn't expect that the few pieces of tribute satin sent to her by her parents were taken away by her master and given to the concubine. Mrs. N was so angry that she argued for a few words and was beaten by her master until she couldn't get down. No wonder they say that women's marriage is like reincarnation. Look at those of us who are lucky. We have fine clothes and delicious food, and we enjoy endless blessings. Our husbands are also very gentle and considerate. Those who are unlucky are almost. Before this lady finished speaking, the lady next to her coughed and changed the subject. Princess Chen Guiyang still looked very dignified, as if she was not the one who heard all the gossip. She even had the leisure to explain to Sanjiu the relationships among the people in the story. Soon she would leave, Sanjiu would get married, and would have to participate in the personnel affairs of the capital alone. Among the 4 princes' wives, Sanjiu's situation was the most special, and she would definitely be pushed to the forefront. The concubine was very powerful, but she could only intervene in the affairs of the inner court ladies, while the 3rd prince would leave the palace to build a mansion. The concubine could not control too much about the affairs outside. She might give some suggestions and polish them, but there were limits. In most cases, Sanjiu had to handle it by herself. Miss Zheng, the eldest prince's wife, and Miss Luo, the 2nd prince's wife, were both born and raised in the capital. Miss Luo, in particular, had been walking sideways in the capital for 18 years. Who dared to provoke them? Only Sanjiu, an outsider with a low birth, looked like a soft persimmon. Chen Guiyang could not help much, but he told Sanjiu all about the relationships, relatives, and enemies, conflicts, handles, and collusion among the families. With Sanjiu's wisdom, she could naturally make good use of this information. Sanjiu had already looked like a rich girl from Chang'an. In addition to her straightforwardness and shrewdness, she also vaguely had the shadow of her past hard work to survive and manage the family business. Her language, posture, and expression were almost the same as Chen Guiyang. She grew up very quickly and was now able to help Chen Guiyang deal with some situations. Chen Guiyang and several sisters and prospective sisters-in-law helped concubine Shu and concubine Di to host a banquet for this group of women. Not long after, when the lights were on, the banquet was finally over. The emperor and the empress and the princes took a short rest and changed their clothes. The emperor and the empress met the foreign ministers who came to the palace to celebrate the birthday one by one according to their closeness, and the princes accompanied them to participate. Li Ju was actually a relative of the emperor according to the system, and he could stay or not, but because he was a Nuliwat and a minister that the emperor had favored recently, he stayed. The emperor was in a good mood and was very lenient with his subordinates. He even ordered Li Ju to go to the Miran Palace, where the family banquet was held in the harem, to accompany Chen Guiyang. This was a unique treatment, which showed that the emperor was very satisfied with Li Ju's performance after marriage. Li Ju thanked him calmly, and despite the jealous eyes of other princes, he followed the eunuchs out of the Qilin palace of the previous dynasty and strolled to the Miran Palace. Only our own people were left in the Miran Palace. As soon as Li Ju appeared, several high-ranking concubines, princesses, and future princes' wives all gave him teasing and mocking looks. Even our own person Sanjiu blinked and looked back and forth. Here, Li Ju exchanged greetings with concubine Shu, concubine Di, and concubine Chen, and several princesses surrounded him and separated him from Chen Guiyang. Oh, isn't this our brother-in-law? He's in a hurry to see our sister, so anxious that he doesn't even care about the rules. I didn't ask you for a red envelope yesterday, nor did I listen to your poem urging you to get ready. Today, forget about writing a poem, but you have to give me a red envelope. If you don't even think about getting close to my sister. Although my brother-in-law is also my master, a master is not as important as a sister, right? It was inconvenient yesterday, and I'm free today anyway. If you want to go over, you have to answer a few questions first, so that I can see if you are really talented. That's right, you have to take a test first. My brother-in-law is used to loving my sister. What if he's just slick and gentle, but not really serious? While they were joking about Li Ju, they looked back and forth between Chen Yang and Li Ju. Princess Chen Yang, who was so dignified, couldn't help but blush. She pulled out a folding fan with 18 hearts carved on mother of pearl from her sleeve, and covered her face lightly, revealing only her beautiful eyes as she looked at Li Ju. Li Ju was most afraid of these noble ladies. They hadn't offended him, nor had they broken the law. He couldn't beat them, scold them, touch them, approach them, or scare them. He was so scared that he begged for mercy again and again, and started to take out his family's belongings directly from the hidden pocket in his sleeve. Fortunately, he still had a portable warehouse, and fortunately, he would always carry valuables with him when he went out. First, each sister was given a gold bracelet inlaid with turquoise by modern craftsmanship. It was not enough. Then, the big glass rhinestone earrings that dazzled the eyes of little girls were given. It was not enough. Finally, each of them was given an exquisite enamel pocket watch. This was a real big deal. Pocket watches were expensive, but there was nowhere to buy them. Only King Shenliuan had sold hundreds of them in the world. There were also some in the palace, but they were not as small and exquisite as the ones Li Ju gave now. The princesses were satisfied and let Li Ju go to Chen Guiyang. However, in public, under the watchful eyes of everyone, Li Ju and Chen Guiyang bowed to each other, but it was difficult to say anything intimate. Instead, they did not dare to express their feelings for a while, and could only smile foolishly. The little princesses who received the gifts, Concubine Shu, Concubine Di, Concubine Chen, Miss Sanjiuo, Miss Zheng, and Miss Lin were all staring at them. Chen Guiyang paused, looking at the nervous and cowardly smile of the silly man in front of him. He also saw that, although everyone looked like they were watching a show, they were full of envy and yearning. He didn't know where he got the courage from, but he suddenly said directly, I'm very happy to receive the fruit plate from my husband. My husband is thinking of me, and I'm really happy. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 446 Sweet Life After Marriage 8. Me too. Li Ju also responded. The young couple only needed a few glances to create a sweet atmosphere, and the crowd watching and cheering started to feel jealous as they laughed. They learned the feeling of eating dog food and lemons without any instruction. Concubine Shu and the others had never tasted the taste of love in their lives. The emperor's unilateral enjoyment was at most a favor, which meant that he could reward them with some precious jewelry and utensils, but they could never expect him to peel melon seeds for them in their lives. The third prince truly loved Sanjiu, but Sanjiu was a partner to the third prince. Not to mention the others, they were not even partners. Miss Lin was ignorant, and she might be able to develop some childhood sweethearts with the fourth prince after returning home, but the others no longer had this opportunity. They could only hope to meet a good man and develop love after marriage. The eunuchs and palace maids set up a seat for Li Ju. Chen Guiyang thought about it, abandoned the sisters, moved next to Li Ju, and the couple sat at the same table. Although she had to endure everyone's strange looks, she was happy. The eunuchs replaced the fruit plate with a new one. When Li Ju saw that there were small white fruits in it, he subconsciously wanted to touch it again. Unexpectedly, this time he was held down by Concubine Shu. This is too much. No matter how much you like it, don't let your wife eat too much. Be careful not to eat too much. Change it to something else. Concubine Chen twisted her mouth. You are really young. I know you care about people, but you can't be too modest. Concubine Chen actually felt a little regretful at this time. Apart from anything else, Li Ju was really good to his wife. Although Qin Chuan, the son-in-law she chose for her daughter, had a good family background and good looks, he was arrogant and a little arrogant. Even when he was called to thank the emperor, he still looked noble behind his back. Concubine Shen was a little bit thoughtful. Although the princess married into his family, she might not be comfortable. In a family, someone has to bow his head. Li Ju and Shen Guiyang would bow their heads, so the two of them could be as close as honey. Qin Chuan didn't look like someone who could bow his head. But then again, Li Ju didn't look like someone who could coax people. He was more like a tough warrior like General Lao Luo and his team. When they just proposed to get married, who would have thought that he would love his wife so much? Xu Fei had just said a few words, and Li Ju followed suit and stopped peeling white nuts and peeled pine nuts instead. Chen Guiyang was peeling small mandarin oranges on the side. This was a variety introduced from King Shenlian and planted in Yunmeng South Road. This year was a good year for mandarin oranges, and the mandarin oranges were very sweet. She peeled out the yellow and orange flesh, picked out the seeds with a silver stick, put it in a small lotus high-footed cup, inserted a small fork with a round head and blunt teeth, and handed it to Li Ju to eat. Li Ju took a bite himself and handed Chen Guiyang a bite. The couple took turns, a bit like a primary school kid in love. You can't blame Li Ju for being naive. Li Ju had never been in a relationship before, so he could only learn from his old father and mother. His parents were like this, and so was he. Chen Guiyang can't be blamed. Chen Guiyang is just returning the favor, and as an ancient lady, her parents are in a respectful relationship. She has never seen the sweetness of young lovers, nor does she know how to fall in love, and she learns according to Li Ju's teaching. Oh, it makes people feel sour. Chen Guiyang sat in such a sight for a long time, and gradually got used to it. Brother, what kind of birthday gift have you prepared for His Majesty? If there is no suitable one, I have it. When I came back from Jinling, I brought a few jade bonsai, all of which are auspicious shapes. My father will definitely like it. I will give you a pair of birthday peaches today, and I can also give you a monkey show. Coincidentally, we thought of the same thing. I also prepared a jade bonsai, but it is the shape of Nanshan's immortal pine and cranes. The Beijing-made cloisonné glazed jade flower ornaments that Li Ju pulled out of the warehouse were export inventory. The craftsmanship in all aspects was very rough, but the advantage was that the cloisonné craft was used to the extreme. After the base of the cloisonné is removed, it presents an excellent sense of transparency in light and shadow, which is rich, but also beautiful and moving. The Nanshan Immortal Pine Crane Longevity Bonsai prepared by Li Ju is huge in size. The entire background and basin are made of cloisonné craftsmanship, while the rocks, trees, flowers, and cranes are made of cloisonné craftsmanship. A large amount of colored glass and very finely polished jade parts are added on it, connected by gold wire. It also uses a mechanism to form a small landscape of flowing springs and waterfalls after water is injected, and miniature moss landscaping is placed in the reserved place. This bonsai is very expensive. Similar but simpler styles have won 6 figures in the museum's auction. How come I didn't know you brought this? It's not on the list in the warehouse. Why are you hiding it from me? How could I hide it from my wife? I calculated that it might be kept until after the Wanshao festival, so I quickly asked someone to get it, and at least I made it in time. Otherwise, would I also give my father-in-law a small pocket watch or something like that? Humph, you're really smart. Well, then my plan won't be used. However, it seems to be Master Yang's birthday in a few days. Let's pay our respects to Master Yang before we leave. No matter what Master thinks about our family's doctrine, Master has taught me and given us his quiet house for the past 6 months. We can't help but be grateful to him. Chen Guiyang was afraid that Li Ju would hate all the great Confucian scholars because of the verbal battles with them in Beijing. Li Ju certainly didn't like those academic tycoons who, in his opinion, were just occupying the monopoly of academic resources to promote their own academic system and develop power. But since his wife said so, of course he had to listen to her. Besides, Yang Mengchen himself was really nice. Li Ju lived in his garden for half a year, so he had to accept this favor. A garden like this in Beijing with all the amenities and a good location was not something you could rent just by paying money. Madam is right. Let's choose a day to celebrate Master Yang's birthday. The Empress came back almost half an hour later. When they came back, Li Ju and Chen Guiyang were still discussing what they had to do before returning to Jinling. There were people all over the room, but only the two of them formed a small circle, as if the atmosphere around them was all pink and no one else could blend in. Family dinners were the proper places to eat, and although they also had separate meals, everyone ate and drank at the same table, so the atmosphere was more like that. Today's weather was also very good. The sun had just set, and there was still some afterglow. The mountains in the far suburbs of Chang'an were faintly visible. The purple mist was lingering along the mountains, and the figures of late returning birds and night falcons flashed by. The freehand painting of mountains and waters had a particularly good scenery. His Majesty the Emperor ordered people to set up the family banquet outside the palace in the open air. The evening breeze was light and cool, not to mention how comfortable it was. In such an environment, the atmosphere was a little relaxed. After all, not as tense as the previous festivals. While they were really eating, drinking and having fun, the relatives of the harem sent birthday gifts to His Majesty the Emperor. The Empress sent a Changsheng embroidered with gold, which had the function of praying for blessings and filling chicken soup. Apart from anything else, the Empress's embroidery and the strokes of her handwriting were exquisite. In recent years, because of some presbyopia and handshaking, the Empress has not touched needlework for a long time, so such a volume of Changsheng with 2,000 or 3,000 words is rare. Concubine Shu made a longevity robe for His Majesty the Emperor, on which 100 Shao characters were written in different ways, and the kisi bottom also had a dark pattern of longevity characters. It was a roll of fine material that Concubine Shu specially asked her family in Jinling to order. Concubine Chen sent a sandalwood screen with 8 auspicious paintings carved on it. The other concubines also had their own gifts. Those who were good at calligraphy and painting gave calligraphy and painting. Those who were rich gave rare treasures. Those who were poor could shyly show off their talents. And those who had nothing gave small items they made themselves. Several princes had to think hard to please the Emperor. Some gave Shuanki rice. Some gave the map of the North Desert that coveted Dayang, and some gave lost books. In short, Li Ju looked at their gifts and felt sympathy for them when he thought about the efforts behind them. It was really not easy to be a prince. You didn't have much money, few people, and no free time. You also had to find a good birthday gift for the Emperor. Chapter 447 Sweet Life After Marriage, End. After the princes had given their gifts, it was Li Ju and his wife's turn. He and Chen Guiyang and his wife brought up 3 jade bonsais, 1 large and 2 small. Chen Guiyang spoke very nicely. My husband and I both rely on the grace of our father and mother. Although my husband has a lot, he has already given it to the world. Using those things would be like borrowing flowers to offer to Buddha. After thinking about it, my husband and I have only some toys. We hope to use these to represent our husband and wife, to accompany our father and mother. My father can enjoy them in his spare time, which can please his eyes and ears, and relax his mood. This is our good fortune. The 2 longevity peach bonsais sent by Chen Guiyang are exquisite, with gold wire mesh glass peaches, jade leaves and pink jade flowers, and root carvings of jade grasshoppers. They are graceful, delicate, and exquisite, which is a classic Jiangnan aesthetic. Li Ju's Nanshan Immortal Pine is a northern aesthetic, either the solemnity of Chang'an or the magnificence of Yan's Heyo. His Majesty the Emperor carefully appreciated the craftsmanship and found it to be exquisite. The eunuchs were asked to fill the bonsai with water, and the mist was rising, and the cranes were dancing, which was a natural picture. Moreover, His Majesty the Emperor knew Li Ju's stinginess very well. Li Ju had not liked these extravagant things for a long time, but now he took out such a good thing to celebrate His Majesty's birthday. His Majesty the Emperor was very moved. It seemed a bit weird to be moved, because his son-in-law gave him a finely crafted plaything, but this was not important. In short, he received his son-in-law's blessing, and was not stingy to give him more in return. His Majesty the Emperor decided to invest more in the technical station line. Last year, Qingyang Prefecture's tax revenue was very good, and the most important thing was that a group of practical people emerged, and they supported the sky after Yu Yaoniang, Meng Erlang and others left. Because of the special administrative planning, County Magistrate Kang did not dare to make trouble in Chengyang Prefecture, so Chengyang Prefecture's personnel, property, money, and grain were reported truthfully every year. His Majesty the Emperor asked the Ministry of Personnel to promote some talents from it to supplement the grassroots clerks system, and it seems that it is not bad at present. The most important thing is that the Emperor has selected a genius accountant who is very good at accounting. This accountant has not read many books, but he is a first-class accountant. He can immediately point out what is wrong after flipping through an account. If he is familiar with the business, he can even estimate the correct result on the spot. The Emperor is ready to recruit people to Chang'an, first to manage the internal treasury for 2 years, and then to manage the national treasury for 2 years. Then, no matter what, he must be allowed to pass the imperial examination and then transferred to the Ministry of Revenue. This is just the harvest of Chengyang Prefecture, and it has only been 3 or 4 years. If there are more years, I don't know what kind of talents can be selected. Even if the Emperor is thinking about his own pocket, he has the motivation to continue to support Li Ju in his technical station system. Besides, Li Ju was so honest and kind, and she also gave a beautiful birthday gift. His Majesty the Emperor accepted it with a smile and said in a comforting tone, "Seeing that you two are of the same mind, I feel relieved. Live a good life in the future. Kanja must respect and love your husband, and Embarks you must treat the princess well, and live together for a long time, and grow old together." Li Ju quietly breathed a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that a toy would not be pleasing to His Majesty the Emperor. "Your servant, daughter, will obey the Emperor's order." After that, the second and third princesses came. The princesses did not leave the palace to build their own houses, so the things they could collect were limited. Most of them were made by themselves, or secretly asked others to collect them from the people. The little princess gave her homemade things. She drew a collection of paintings for His Majesty the Emperor. It was a collection of plants and microorganisms in various environments commonly seen in life, including mosses, ferns, mosquitoes, insect eggs, etc. The little princess also thoughtfully wrote down how to ensure personal hygiene without harming the environment. Leaving aside the heavy-mouthed content, the pictures and text are really amazing, and very suitable for publication as a picture book. His Majesty the Emperor was almost carried away by the various insects drawn by the little princess, but the little princess's paintings have a childlike fantasy. The colors of the pictures are refreshing, and they are indeed excellent works, so His Majesty the Emperor ordered them to be passed on to everyone to appreciate. The Queen and the little princess have always been close. The Queen knows best what the little princess has learned, and what articles she is writing, so the Queen has long known the contents of the picture book. She handed the picture book to Concubine Shu without changing her expression, and Concubine Shu gave it to Concubine D. Most people don't like snakes, insects, rats and ants, so everyone at the table praised them against their conscience. But Li Ju seriously thought that the little princess was a material for doing great things, and there might be a place for her in the girls' school in the future. This is a very distant thing, and the fate of the little princess has been determined since birth. She will have a carefree and pampered childhood and adolescence. When she grows up to 18, she will start to choose a husband. It depends on how much the Emperor and the Queen like her. She will get married between the ages of 18 and 24, and then spend her life raising her husband and children. Unless her husband is like Li Ju, an open-minded man who is willing to be friends with his wife and let her pursue her dreams. Otherwise her hobbies, interests, and specialties will be buried in the world. Of course, Chengyang's girls' school will be a good place, and it may bring some changes to the girls. Li Ju was a little worried about the lively and studious little princess, but he quickly put it aside and devoted himself to the real banquet. To be fair, the family dinner was much better. The Queen wanted to keep Chengyang to question him carefully, but the Emperor had said so before, so she had to let her daughter and son-in-law go back early. The banquet lasted until halfway through the night, and the Emperor was tired, so he ordered that there was no need to greet the guests the next morning, and then he dismissed the banquet. Except for the Emperor, who usually stayed up late, everyone else went to bed early, and they were even more sleepy than the Emperor at this time. Hearing this, they hurriedly said goodbye and left. Only Li Ju, Chen Guiyang and the eldest prince and his wife were going to leave the palace, so they said goodbye to their parents and walked out of the hall, preparing to take the sedan chair to leave the palace. As soon as they walked out of the main hall, Chen Guiyang couldn't wait to hold Li Ju's hand. Li Ju didn't dodge at all and held Chen Guiyang tightly, and the two smiled at each other. Li Ju pulled his wife closer, changed his hands to one hand holding hers, and the other hand gently holding her shoulders. The two walked in unison, lightly passing through the vast night and the sea of lights, as if they were a couple of gods. The people who had not yet dispersed on the high platform saw their little movements, and they winked and teased them privately. Concubine Shu looked up and saw that her son, who was standing beside her obediently, had called Sanjiu. Although the couple was not as close as Li Ju and Chen Guiyang, they at least had a sense of keep away from outsiders. Concubine Shen was still jealous because she didn't have this treatment, and the third princess she had high hopes for. She didn't know if her daughter would also have such a sweet married life. The queen sighed slightly in her heart, not knowing whether she was sad that her daughter had forgotten her or satisfied with their sweet happiness. Chapter 448, The Race Between Steam Locomotive and Horse-Drawn Carriage 1. For the next 3 days, Chang'an was immersed in a festive atmosphere. Li Ju and Chen Guiyang packed up neatly every day and went to the palace to pay their respects to the emperor and empress. After 3 days, Li Ju informed His Majesty the Emperor that the preparations there had been completed and that the 108 uses of the steam engine could be demonstrated. It was a clear and cloudless day, and the sun was neither hot nor cold, just the right temperature. It was a rare quiet day. When His Majesty the Emperor saw Li Ju's letter saying that he could watch the serious experiments at any time, he excitedly called several important officials to watch together. The 4 princes, Generals Ioluo, Wu Yu, Yang Fuan, Zhang Shanggu, etc. were all called up by His Majesty the Emperor. He also dug out Yang Mengx's son Yang Jingli, Qin Zuzi and others from the pile of books and asked them to bring their students with them. They came to Qiuan Mountain, the test site that Li Ju had polished early. The group of people brought by His Majesty, in addition to several princes, included Li Ju's mortal enemy Wu Yu, and his son-in-law and successor Yang Fuan, as well as Zhang Shanggu and Yang Jingwei, who seemed neutral, but actually had at least one leg on Li Ju's boat. In short, all the pros and cons were brought. Qiuan Mountain is a very small hillside, with an altitude of only a few dozen meters and a gentle slope. Because there is no water source nearby, it is very barren and uninhabited, which is just right for experiments. Li Ju had ordered people to set up a temporary stop on the top of the mountain with the widest view, and cut down all the slightly taller shrubs that block the view, to ensure that people on the top of the mountain can directly see the situation at the foot of the mountain. The mountain is more than 4 miles around, and 2 parallel elliptical circular tracks have been set up. At a slightly higher position is a tram station, a temporary one, and in the stable next to it, there are several vigorous horses grazing leisurely. Opposite the stable across the track is a temporary warehouse, which stores coal. 3 identical carriages were connected in series to form 2 cars, parked side by side in the station. The inner carriage had a shaft for horses, which was obviously a horse carriage, but the outer carriage had a huge, clumsy and ugly thing in front of it. No one could tell what it was, but they subconsciously thought that this huge smoking iron lump was really ugly. His Majesty the Emperor had seen small steam engines, but he did not expect that a steam engine placed on the front of a car would be so clumsy and ugly, so that he was a little skeptical. Could this thing really run? Li Ju did not care about their thoughts. He only invited His Majesty the Emperor and several elders to take seats, and then explained the design and conditions of today's experiment, and respectfully asked His Majesty the Emperor to give orders. Simply put, it was to run horses and cars on these 2 parallel 4-mile circular tracks, and show everyone the results directly. Li Ju believed that today's experiment would definitely go down in history. It marked the beginning of a new era. The century of machinery and industry was about to come, and the rapid development of human society relied on the manufacturing capabilities of the large industrial era. The scientific progress of the past several thousand years cannot catch up with the rapid development of the next 180 years. People's lifestyles will be changed drastically. It seems to be a good idea to let His Majesty the Emperor personally announce the birth of the new era. And Li Ju also has a secret weird feeling. This thing will most likely be the gravedigger of the old society's monarchy in the future. Maybe 100 years later, maybe 200 years later, once we enter the thorough industrial age, productivity will be raised to a suitable level. With Daeong's cultural tradition, it is impossible to continue to retain the monarchy. Daeong believes in the divine right of kings. This god is not a vague god in a narrow sense, but more like a large and general contract. It is the will of the people, to be safe in the world, to be stable that has concluded a spirit, to protect their own safety and property, giving the monarch the power to rule the world. When productivity is highly developed, the people find that the monarchy has become a shackle that binds them, and they will take back this grant. Compared with the will of heaven, they believe more in man's determination to conquer nature. Compared with the royal bloodline, they believe more in are there any kings, princes, generals and ministers of different species? This is the spirit of Daeong people. His Majesty the Emperor intuitively felt that the steam engine was a monster, but he could not imagine what the future would be like. He might have feared that his country might be defeated by some unworthy descendants, but he would never agree that the imperial system itself would disappear. At this moment, His Majesty the Emperor was very willing to control this monster in his own hands, so he waved the flag in his hand according to Li Ju's introduction, notifying the people at the temporary station at the foot of the mountain to be ready. Both the carriage and the steam locomotive were equipped with 2 drivers. The carriage driver harnessed the horses in an orderly manner, and the steam locomotive driver added a few more shovels of coal to the car. The flag signal from the foot of the mountain indicated that it was ready. His Majesty the Emperor waved the flag again, and the 2 trains at the foot of the mountain started. The vigorous horse flew a long distance in one step, and soon reached a uniform speed, running happily along the track. In order to prevent the horses from being frightened, they were sent to live with the steam engine early. Even though the noise was overwhelming after the steam engine started, the horses who were already accustomed to the noise did not panic. The horses pulling the carts were moving forward without hesitation. On the other side, the progress of the steam locomotive was much slower. The driver had to light the coal and put it into the boiler first, and then wait for the water to heat up before the steam pushed the piston to move. The steam locomotive started very slowly, and its efficiency was very low at the beginning of acceleration, and it was left far behind by the carriage. His Majesty the Emperor felt a little embarrassed, and the few people who were at odds with Li Ju were secretly happy, but they did not show a look of watching a joke on the surface. Instead, they said comfortingly, "Anyway, this car does not cost mules and horses, and it always saves livestock for spring plowing and autumn harvest. It is always a miracle to make such a piece of iron run by itself, no matter how fast or slow it is." His Majesty the Emperor sneered in his heart, turned his face, and looked at Li Ju with some worry. He did not want his favorite son-in-law to be embarrassed here. The third prince also heard the sarcasm and said directly, "My dear old man, why not take another look? Is Feng Ranghao a person who likes to show off and win popularity? If that's the case, it's not worth his years of research. I'm afraid that we are short-sighted and can't see what use this big stupid thing that is slower than an ox cart and noisier is. We might as well come here on horseback." Yang Fuan and several students on his side laughed together. His Majesty the Emperor's face turned cold, not because of Li Ju, but because he was dissatisfied with this group of old-school ministers who could no longer keep up with his thinking. Li Ju pretended not to hear it. How powerful a train, a steam locomotive is. It's not about words, but about performance. And he made some arrangement in advance. Obviously Yang Fuan and others didn't see it, but Yang Jingwei, who was as careful as a hare, had fallen into deep thought, and he saw it. After a while, the steam locomotive finished warming up, roaring and spewing thick smoke, and ran slowly on the track. Chapter 449, The Race Between Steam Locomotive and Horse-Drawn Carriage 2. The first circle, the second circle, the third circle. The carriage and the locomotive went around in circles, and the roar of the steam locomotive even attracted local residents who were far away to come and watch the fun. The guards in charge of the alert came to ask for the Emperor's instructions, allowing them to get a little closer and stop dozens of meters away from the track to watch the game together. The guards on the mountain gathered near the emperor, blocking all angles to prevent assassins from using longbows to sneak attack among the onlookers. When it came to the fifth circle, only the people were still discussing the iron lump with great interest, and the people on the top of the mountain had already dispersed their minds and were discussing the government. However, after a while, the progress came to the fifth circle, and the horse of the carriage was obviously exhausted. The driver slowed down and entered the station, changed a horse, and continued to gallop. The steam locomotive was still moving forward at a steady speed. Although it had changed horses, the speed of the carriage was still faster than the steam locomotive, leaving the steam locomotive far behind. At this time, those who are more far-sighted or really understand local affairs will realize the core point. The endurance of a steam locomotive is much better than that of a horse-drawn carriage. However, it is not enough. The steam locomotive continues to roar forward amid the different ideas of the crowd. The efficiency of the steam locomotive that Li Ju brought out today is very low, with an actual horsepower of less than 1000. In addition, the friction of the wooden rails is relatively large, making this big guy with a speed of only more than 10 km per hour consume 1 ton of coal per hour. Today's steam locomotive carries 5 tons of coal at a time, which is the amount used for 5 hours. So, after 5 hours, the people on the top of the mountain have already sat on the ground and played leaf cards, and the onlookers have left impatiently. The roaring steam locomotive is still running tirelessly at a constant speed, and the carriage next to it has been replaced with a 6th horse. For the sake of Yang Dalang and Wu Yaoniang, Yang Jingwei came over quietly and asked, "The biggest advantage of this steam engine is its unparalleled durability? It has been such a long time without changing the locomotive. The people on it can prepare for shifts. Unlike a horse-drawn carriage, if you want to maintain this speed for a long time, you must change people and horses. Moreover, the lifespan of a horse is limited. A horse can only live for so many years, and it can't do any heavy work in the front or back. Your iron lump is different. Since it is made of iron, it must be easier to raise than a horse. Not only that, moreover, the opponent of a steam locomotive is definitely not a horse-drawn carriage, let alone a warhorse. The reunion ability of a warhorse is still unmatched, and the powerful flexibility and impact force are something that a steam locomotive can never match. The advantages of a steam locomotive are load capacity and relatively less picky adaptability. This thing only needs to burn coal. Li Ju was quite satisfied with the test result. It was a bit slow, but it was really stable. It had been moving at a constant speed for so long, which made people drowsy. 3 hours later, when the sun was almost setting, the steam locomotive slowly pulled into the station to refuel. There were still a few horses in the stable that had not been used, and they looked energetic, so they should be able to run for another 2 or 3 hours. In terms of distance, the horses ran much more than this car, but everyone knew that the steam engine won this game overall. Therefore, Wu Yu and others had complicated expressions, while the emperor had a little more smile on his face. Li Ju's plan was not limited to this. His Majesty the Emperor waved a flag, signaling the people of the station at the foot of the mountain to stop and no longer run, and smiled as he asked Li Ju to lead the way, to get closer to take a closer look at the iron lump. As they set off, the Emperor asked carefully. He actually already knew a lot of things, but he asked them deliberately for Wu Yu and the others to hear. How does this thing move? Burning coal. The coal heats the water, steam comes out, and pushes the wheels forward through the connecting rod structure. I wrote in my physics book that this is a process of potential energy conversion. The current efficiency of potential energy conversion is too low, maybe only 2 or 3%. In my calculations, the efficiency of coal burning must reach more than 10% to be considered successful. The Emperor understood that the speed could be increased by 2 or 3 times. He didn't understand the relationship between power, time, and horsepower, but he roughly understood that it was probably like this. Oh, then what else can be done to improve the efficiency you mentioned? The most urgent task is to thoroughly understand the drawings left by my elders, and train a group of craftsmen who can read drawings and understand the conversion of kinetic energy and potential energy. In addition, I also need craftsmen who can smelt iron and cast steel. The combustion stability of the steam engine is closely related to the performance of the iron boiler. We also need craftsmen who can handle coal. Your Majesty has also seen that this thing burns coal, so the quality of coal is directly related to how much fuel it needs to carry on the road. The most important thing is that I need rubber, which is a very critical link. But the place where it grows is separated from Ardaon by an ocean of 80,000 miles. I asked a friend to explore the way first, and I'm afraid it will take 3 to 5 years to get news. Li Ju counted with his hands and calculated with His Majesty the Emperor one by one. No matter which point, it could not be achieved in a short time. His Majesty the Emperor could only sigh and agreed to let Li Ju use the name of the royal family to set up a laboratory in Li School and conduct experiments as much as he wanted. Li Ju's explanation was almost done, and His Majesty the Emperor also came to the front of the steam locomotive and led a group of people to circle around this monster twice. It was still hot, the cooling water was still warm, the smell of the coal itself and the pungent odor produced during the combustion process were disgusting, and the overall hard and bulky structure revealed the aesthetics of another productivity system. People would instinctively fear this strange and intimidating giant, but there were also a small number of people who would naturally like this structure. His Majesty the Emperor belonged to the latter, and the other important officials belonged to the former. So His Majesty the Emperor was fascinated by the steam locomotive, but others found it difficult to understand what was so good about this thing. His Majesty the Emperor walked around a few times with great interest, and the guards who followed him suddenly made a yeah sound, and then almost all the Imperial Guard subconsciously went into a state of alert. His Majesty noticed the change in the atmosphere. What's going on? The guard replied, Your Majesty, the weight of this car is not right. You see, the curvature of its floor is a bit large. It can bend such a strong floor. What is loaded on this car? Li Ju smiled and said, so that's why. Please rest assured, guards, it's all loaded with stones. No outsiders have sneaked in. Li Ju himself is a top-notch stealth expert, so he is sure that he will not be robbed by others. He generously signaled the guards to open the door of the carriage to check. The 3 carriages pulled by the carriage were empty, but some wooden chairs and tables were now tilted. The 3 carriages pulled by the steam locomotive were fully loaded. 2 carriages were full of rocks, weighing thousands of pounds. Half of the first carriage was loaded with coal, which has now been used up, and the other half was also rocks. Everyone then truly felt the horror of the steam locomotive. It may be a little slow, a little clumsy, and a little noisy, but it has the roof of 18 horse-drawn and ox-drawn carts, and it is something that can change the way people live in the world. Chapter 450, The Race Between Steam Locomotive and Horse-Drawn Carriage 3. The 2.5 carts of rock shocked everyone. The steam engine is really a monster. His Majesty the Emperor patted the nearest stone, and suddenly said good. Li Ju had expected this. A man who had fought in all directions could not fail to see the advantages of the steam locomotive. Moreover, when His Majesty the Emperor visited the Li family before, he saw the use of miniature steam engines on ships. At that time, His Majesty the Emperor had already realized the extraordinariness of the steam engine, but only at this time could he really determine how great the pulling force of the steam engine was. If this car is faster, then transporting tens of thousands of kilograms of grain from Lingnan to Mobai would only require a few people to take care of the front of the car and add coal. It would be extremely convenient for the north and south, east and west to exchange what they have. This is just superficial work. Think about it, this car can also be used to mobilize tens of thousands of troops, saving a lot of food and time. It is really a national weapon. His Majesty the Emperor directly approved the steam locomotive, and Wu Yu and others could only congratulate His Majesty the Emperor with a green face for obtaining such a weapon. His Majesty the Emperor was delighted for a while, but Li Ju poured cold water on him. Your Majesty, calm down first. Although the steam locomotive is good, there are 2 major problems that have not been solved. One is the low energy efficiency. This minister will definitely do his best to break through and strive to move to a higher level as soon as possible and enter the era of internal combustion engines. There is another problem, which is the track. What's the problem with the track? His Majesty the Emperor glanced at the wooden track. Isn't this good? Oh, you mean that laying the track requires opening the road, and maintaining the track requires manpower. That's easy to say. Just follow the current official road, widen the road, and lay the wooden track. In the short term, build this one first, and then slowly build two on the opposite side for people to travel back and forth. His Majesty the Emperor made the arrangements naturally. Li Ju shook his head. Your Majesty, wooden tracks are okay for horse-drawn carriages and mule-drawn carriages, but not for steam locomotives. Wooden tracks cannot bear the weight of cast iron carts weighing tens of thousands of pounds, and will be damaged after a few uses. Therefore, the tracks should also be made of steel. Your Majesty, Daean cannot provide so much cast iron for the time being. This is the first reason. The requirements for the roadbed of the railway are very high, and there are many limitations, such as the load of the bridge, the arc of the turn, etc. So the construction cost is also high. This is the second reason. Another point. Since the track is made of cast iron, there will definitely be people who steal it. The road protection team requires a lot of manpower, and Daean cannot spare such manpower for the time being. In Kingshan City, Li Ju organized a road maintenance team, and the government recruited temporary workers, which has used up all the local idle manpower. Farming accounts for more than half of the labor force, and workshops account for the remaining small half. Therefore, the labor force serving public infrastructure can only hope for reproduction and the participation of refugees. The previous flood brought some manpower to Jinling Kingshan, which was just enough. But looking at the whole country, it is not enough. Encouraging population growth as a plan at the national policy level, involving all aspects of farming, food, taxation, and class mobility. It does not mean that His Majesty the Emperor can really grow the population just by saying that he wants to encourage population growth. People tend to have more children in a stable social environment, but once the population exceeds the carrying capacity of grain, it will lead to a catastrophe. If the food gap is 10%, at least 10% of the population will be forced to lose their lives. This is the essential difference between food and any other materials. Therefore, steam locomotives will bring new opportunities for prosperity, but they will be subject to other social conditions. However, not long after the founding of Daean, the population has just begun to recover and is far from reaching the carrying capacity. This is beneficial to His Majesty the Emperor's plan. His Majesty the Emperor suppressed the urge to take back the ruling power of the grassroots and the border, and nodded. You are right, I'm too anxious. Since you are more knowledgeable about these matters, I will still leave them to you. I hope to ride this steam locomotive to Bihai and Lingnan in my lifetime. I want to catch the fierce fish in Bihai and taste lychees in Lingnan. Li Ju bowed his hands in greeting. I will do my best. His Majesty the Emperor nodded. I'm waiting for your good news. He paused and said, I'm waiting for more than just good news about this steam engine. Li Ju was a little surprised. He did not understand what His Majesty the Emperor meant, and His Majesty the Emperor had already asked Fengdian and the lecturer to record several orders, so Li Ju was embarrassed to ask more. His Majesty the Emperor paced back and forth beside the front of the locomotive. The lecturer and Fengdian each took a Kingshan pen to record the Emperor's orders. He ordered to select important transportation points in the capital to prepare for the construction of railway tracks. This matter was handed over to Feng Ranghao to preside over. In the initial stage, it should not be too long, and only a dozen miles would be enough. Li Ju said that the current locomotive would not be upgraded. A new upgraded locomotive would be made next time there is an upgrade, so this locomotive is the first generation of the final version. Since the locomotive is fixed and does not need to be modified, it can be moved to the city and run several times a day. To let the people get used to it as soon as possible, it would be best if Li Ju left the drawings and taught the craftsmen to make a more beautiful locomotive before returning to Jinling and get a few luxurious carriages to hang on it. He wanted to take the queen and concubines to take a steam locomotive to tour the capital. By the way, he had to find a few painters to carefully draw today's competition and this ugly locomotive as a souvenir. He ordered to resurvey the official roads of Daean 19th Road and collect maps of the official roads and nearby areas according to Li Ju's contour drawing method to prepare for the railway planning. He ordered to re-summarize the social basic conditions of each county in Daean, mainly natural output, population, land, natural environment, etc., to prepare for the future setting of railway stations. This one is the simplest, because in order to select experimental sites for the technical station, since the year before last, each county has been checked once, and Li Ju has also made some targeted adjustments, based on his experience. This result can be used after some modifications, and the city can be prepared in advance. Order to select craftsmen to participate in Li Ju's laboratory, actively participate in steam engine improvement and track construction, and those who have made contributions will be rewarded with titles. Although it is only a rank of officer, it is also a supreme honor. A very practical order was recorded, and it will soon be transcribed into the form of an imperial edict, and issued to the people of the world for execution. It was late, and His Majesty the Emperor felt a little tired. He finally patted Li Ju's shoulder and patted the ugly iron locomotive head, and ordered to return to the city with satisfaction. Iron Mountain was near the city gate, and the ceremonial carriage arrived at the city gate in less than a quarter of an hour. Today, the whole area was heavily guarded, the city gates were wide open, and there were imperial guards patrolling, and on guard everywhere. No one else could approach. The only exception was a group of people parked not far from the city gate. In the middle was a canopy carriage, 2 white horses, a red painted carriage, hanging white gauze, and hanging necklaces, which jingled in the evening breeze. His Majesty the Emperor knew at a glance that it was Cheng Guiyang's carriage. It turned out that Cheng Guiyang was here today, but she didn't go to the scene, but was watching the situation through a telescope on the city wall. His Majesty the Emperor suddenly felt a little sour, and called Li Ju. "Hey, my good girl, I actually came to the city gate to wait for you. You two new Wits are in love. I'm an experienced person, I understand, but you must not delay the business." Li Ju didn't listen at all, and responded politely and randomly. At the gate of the city wall next to him, Cheng Guiyang, dressed in men's clothes, and wearing a mealy on her head, came down from the city wall. In front of the Emperor, Cheng Guiyang lifted up her veil, and turned it to the brim of her hat, revealing her fair face. She bowed to her father first, smiled at Li Ju, and then turned back, to look at her father eagerly. The Emperor waved his hands. "Okay, you guys go back quickly. The consort doesn't have to see you off to the palace gate." Oh, it really makes my teeth ache. No wonder everyone in the palace was so upset after my birthday banquet that day. It's all because of you two. Li Ju smiled foolishly, urged his horse forward, pulled Cheng Guiyang up with one hand, and the couple rode together, strolling towards Princess Cheng Guiyang's mansion. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.